Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 757 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Russia has had another very, very bad day for them. And good for Ukraine, but it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and the ongoing war inside of Russia. A good amount has happened so far over the past 24 hours. We've actually heard that apparently there has been a very large plan that the Ukrainians have put into action and is in action at the moment that has completely hindered the Russians from conducting any other kinds of offensive operations within Ukraine, probably for the next couple of months for that matter, for however long this may last. It was an absolute stroke of genius now that the actual reason why some things have happened lately has been, I guess, put out to the public. We can now see that the Ukrainians, along with another group, were working in unison to create a scenario that was the best scenario, the best case scenario that Ukraine could ever want. A huge thanks should be given to that group in particular, which we're about to name in a second, and President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Ukrainian government for coming up with this cunning plan and putting it into action, pretty much saving Ukraine from any other kind of a large Russian offensive well into the foreseeable future. Of course, before we begin though, put an LSA in the chat, spam LSA in the chat, so that way we can make sure to know that the Lee Spring Army remains strong and continues to grow even stronger as we are in the very middle of LSA week. But it's time for us to move on down into the Black Sea really quickly, because as we thought that the Russian Navy couldn't become any more of a larger embarrassment over the course of the war, they became a bigger embarrassment today. It seems as though, in the middle of a Russian live fire exercise for the Navy, near to the area of the southeastern part of Russia, it seems as though a Russian trawler ended up getting hit by an anti-ship missile and ended up eventually sinking. It also ended up wounding 4 of the crew members on board the trawler and killing an additional 3. There's the trawler right there, having been obliterated by the anti-ship missile, and now adrift in the sea as it continues to burn. The anti-ship missile penetrating the side of the hull and causing a unstoppable fire.
You'd almost think they were so terrified during their own military exercises that they're going to end up hitting a boat by accident with fishermen on board. It's like, it's just an exercise.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I don't see them even that much exercised after the exercise. The only thing I've seen that they've exercised is a good amount of stupidity, and have ended up blowing away one of their own fishing trawlers in the southeastern Black Sea and killing about half of the crew that was on board. Pretty stupid move.
They got in their daily civilian casualty exercise, I guess you could say. They're practicing their war crimes, I guess.
And speaking of war crimes, one thing that was very interesting to see today is that the Russians apparently failed greatly at conducting any kind of large war crimes overnight, as Ukrainian air defense was wildly successful in shooting down an unbelievable number of Russian missiles. This is the report from last night. They shot down 29 X-101, I believe they're calibers, and they shot down 2 Iskanders. And one of them was actually the Kinzhal hypersonic missile. So, suffice it to say, they did very good last night, and were able once again to shoot down another Kinzhal hypersonic missile, proving that the Kinzhal is not impervious to ground fire. And speaking of which, another interesting thing that we got out of the Kyiv air defense last night is that one of the X-101 caliber rockets was actually shot down by a pair of 50 caliber machine guns. Like, just straight up M2 Browning machine guns, the kinds that you can find really anywhere in the United States. You can see them opening up on this incoming missile right here and shooting it down almost right when it passed over the horizon. So here's the clip. The 50 calibers are opening up and hit it somehow. I don't know how, but they actually blew it up in flight, destroyed it.
Also, is that an M2 Browning that they're shooting? Because I saw a lot of people in my comments earlier today saying that it was not. The rate of fire was too high, but I could have sworn it was. The caption said it was as well.
I would have to believe that the caption is most likely correct. It may be, let me see. Let's see, Dishka. Rate of fire.
It was incredible, though, nonetheless, whatever gun it was, to actually hit the cruise missile coming in with a small arm. That's wild.
So, the Dishka and the M2 Browning have approximately about the same rate of fire, and depending on what kind it is, like for example, if it's an aviation M2, which I'm kind of doubting it would be, it can get all the way up to around 750, 850 rounds a minute. But that's not an M2 Browning, that's an AN M2 or an AN M3. So going off of that, it's entirely possible that it is a M2 Browning. It's not out of the question, but the rate of fire is pretty freaking high. I mean, I don't think anybody can disagree with that. That thing was mowing them down, but still, very nice to see that they were able to shoot down a missile with just raw machine guns alone. And we also got to see that today, Ukrainian first responders and firefighters within Kyiv were working to get a 500-kilogram warhead out of one of the neighborhoods that ended up falling into the area, but did not explode, fortunately. So now they're trying to lift it onto the back of a truck right there, straddled on a crane, and get it on out of the area.
And also, I just realized I called this a fire truck earlier, but the front says demining, so that might tell us something.
A little bit. Just a little bit. With that, that's the end of the clip, but still nice to see that the Ukrainian air defense did as best as it possibly could over the past 24 hours and was able to intercept and stop a lot of those incoming Russian air targets. But one thing that the Russians were not able to do was the same thing, as we got to see that MLRS rockets were still landing into the city of Belgrade as far as today went. We got to see one of the MLRS rockets actually impact right in front of the Belgrade Arena here in this area. Here's the clip. There's the MLRS exploding, and the clip ends there. But interestingly enough, if we go into Belgrade and we try and find the Belgrade Sport Arena, it actually does not take that much looking. Because when we zoom in right here into the middle of the city, you look around and you go, hey, I can't find the Belgrade Sport Arena. That's okay, because it's right over here. This is the Belgrade Sport Arena. And from what I can tell, it appears that the rocket exploded. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to make sure. I'm going to double check, because when I looked earlier, this is what I found. Let's see, the Belgrade Sport Arena. Maybe this is it. No, hell no. That is not the Belgrade Sport Arena. So, let's see here. Where is the Sport Arena? That looks a lot like it would be the Sport Arena. Here's the Belgrade. Okay, so this is the Belgrade Arena. This appears to be the exact place where that rocket exploded. Either on this side of the building or this side. Let's go back and check. So we can see some buildings on the other side that appear to be some small shops. One of them may be a doner kebab, so let's check it out on the street. So there's the arena. There's no... Wait, there is a staircase right there. But is there a yellow roof building? This looks like it's it. That looks like the doner kebab that might be in the clip right there. And then, yep, this is the exact spot. So, the explosion actually happened right there where that car is parked. Right about that approximate area. And we can see the sidewalk coming over. Yep, this lines up perfectly. So that's where that MLRS rocket landed. And going off of that, and knowing that it's in this area of the town, let's say that that MLRS rocket is being fired at its maximum range of approximately 12 miles for the longest range Grad rockets that can currently be used by the Ukrainians. So, going off of that, we're going to move the marker right down here to the Belgrade Arena, and then we're going to measure from that point. So, that is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, right here at 12 miles, that would be the farthest distance away that a Free Russian Army MLRS could be and still be able to fire into the city of Belgrade. Going off of that, it is very clear that the Free Russian Army has been able to make it up to Myslova Pristan and further north than that, just going off of the range that these MLRSs operate at. That also means, once again, that the Free Russian Army, as of today, was in the area close enough to Belgrade that they could fire an MLRS into that area of town. We are able to confirm it's an MLRS based off the explosion pattern, not only that, the size of the rocket that impacted in the area, and on top of that, the information that was then corroborated by Russian authorities, which we usually don't take as true, but given the other evidence that we had, it does appear that it's all coming together to show it is an MLRS rocket that landed at the arena. And that means that the MLRS would have been about this far away, somewhere within this area, at exactly 12 miles away, meaning that was either inside of Myslova Pristan or somewhere right outside of Myslova Pristan firing off that rocket. So, with that in mind, we still know that the Free Russian Army is clearly inside of the Belgrade Oblast. It's still very close to Belgrade. Moving on over from that and into the western Grivorond front, we have seen really no advances coming out of this area. It appears that the Free Russian Army has either been stopped in this area from advancing farther, or they've decided to hold their positions and not advance farther. We're not really sure which one it is, but we do know that they're holding down the area at the moment, and they're still sending out proof that the Free Russian Army is in control of towns like Irkovsky, with this picture sent out today. This is actually what we believe to be the Free Russian Army flag, or the brand new Freedom of Russia Legion flag. We're not exactly sure, but we have been seeing it show up a good bit so far during the battles that have been happening inside of the Belgorod Oblast, and we're believing that this is most likely some kind of attempt to create a Free Russian Army flag. Overall, pretty striking, and honestly, not that much different from the LSA flag in its color patterns, except for the black. We don't have any black in our flag, but we do have the white and the blue, which is really nice to see. Absolutely love to see interesting designs that look kind of similar to ours, and great to know that they have those out there and they're doing their thing. Maybe an LSA
I think the LSA flag might have it on quality, though. I think ours looks thicker.
Ours is a little bit thicker. I mean, that thing's got cake. You know what I mean? But beyond that, that's the end of this clip. Really nice to see. And we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on to our next one. We're going to hear that the Freedom of Russian Army has been making an announcement, or more so a call to arms, apparently saying that we call on Russians from all countries, people of all nationalities, to join us and fight against the Putin dictatorship. Only with arms in hand will we create a new and peaceful Russia, of which there is no shame in being a citizen. And that's pretty much what this says in shorter words right here. It says something like, this is our war, stand up and fight, something along those lines. But interesting to see that the Free Russian Army is clearly intending to stay in the area and is calling up more manpower to help them out with that. We've also gotten a little bit of additional news from the Free Russian Army itself and the representatives of different forces inside of the Free Russian Army. We're about to be talking about that here in a second, but really quickly, I have to bring y'all back to the southern Black Sea, because at this very moment, the smoke is still clearing from that little fishing trawler that got obliterated earlier today inside of that military exercise on accident. A lot of people have been saying that the Russian Navy is an absolute shell of its former self and has no credibility left. Other people are actually saying that the Russians made an innocent mistake. Some other people were saying that the Russian Navy has historically always been a joke, and some other people are not really sure. But Matthew, what do you think about this particular instance? And most importantly, what is everyone else thinking about it?
So when we asked the audience about what y'all thought about the Russian trawler getting destroyed today during that military exercise, it looks like 66% said Russia's Navy has no credibility left, while 23% said Russia never had any naval credibility. And in my opinion, I would say that they probably never had it. Because I really haven't seen anything in the Russian Navy that indicates that they're a superior fighting force in any way, shape, or form. And they've really proven today that they are not only not superior in any form, they're also very inferior when it comes to their skill, because they just struck one of their own, and that's even worse than before. So that seems to be on par with the Russian military's ways at this point, is they attack their own people by accident, and then they move on like, well, whatever, it happens. So apparently it's not that big of a deal in the Russian military. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, the Russian Navy never had any credibility in the first place. If you ever look through the history of the Russian Navy, which I won't go into because it's way too long of a history, but if you ever look through all of it, it is a complete embarrassment from start to finish. There's nothing that glorious about the Russian Navy. They rarely ever won any naval engagements that they were involved in, even against countries like Japan at the very beginning of the 20th century, which were considered a joke by most of the international world because they had only started to industrialize just about 40 years prior, or really 30 years prior, to the conflict that broke out in between them and Russia. And somehow, literally just going from a feudal society to a slightly industrialized society by the time of 1905, they ended up obliterating the Russians, who had had access to an industrialized society for about 60 to 70 years before the Japanese ever even had a concept of what industrialization was. The Russians are a complete joke by every single sense of the means. And that's why I believe that there really was no credibility to be had in the first place. And so far, the last 2 years have certainly shown that that is true. But moving on out of that and moving back into Ukraine, it's time for me to tell y'all about that brilliant, cunning plan that the Ukrainians brought into effect, pretty much, to create the kind of situation that we're seeing right now. And this actually brings us into talking about the Free Russian Army. Up until now, we didn't really know what the goal of the Free Russian Army was, but today they actually had a specific meeting to talk about the Free Russian Army's aims and goals inside of Russia, and they held this inside of Ukraine. This is actually a picture from that event that happened today. Now, one interesting thing that they said was that they were planning to stop the northeastern offensive in its entirety. Many of you all may know that there was information coming out near to the end of the Battle of Avdiivka that the Russians were amassing tens of thousands of troops and hundreds of tanks and armored personnel carriers in the northeastern area to try and conduct an offensive that would spearhead its way to Kupiansk and retake the town, opening up a larger front inside the Kharkiv Oblast and trying to once again retake the second largest city in Ukraine. That plan was completely thwarted by the Free Russian Army. From what we know now, Russian forces have been relocated from the northeastern area where they were planning this offensive and have now been urgently rushed into the Belgrade Oblast to try and stop the Free Russian Army's advance, meaning that the Free Russian Army's entire aim and objective was not to actually take the city of Belgrade, it seems. It was to cause a critical distraction that the Russians would not be able to avoid responding to, so that way they could stop this northeastern offensive from ever happening. And it looks like they actually succeeded in doing that. At the moment, there is now a larger amount of Russian forces inside of the Belgrade Oblast. We don't know an exact number, but it is a decent amount, and most likely coming from the northeastern area, as that is the largest group of uninterrupted Russian forces that could have been pulled off of a line in Ukraine and sent directly into Belgrade to try and deal with the ongoing situation. That means that the Ukrainians pulled a four-dimensional chess move by invading the Russians to stop another attempt at invading more of Ukraine. A really smart move overall, and it appears to have paid off quite well. At the exact same time that that statement was made, the Free Russian Army also said that former Wagner soldiers are now serving in the Russian Volunteer Corps and fighting alongside them against the Putin government. This was actually said by the leader of the Russian Volunteer Corps today, which I'll just let y'all hear him say it in raw Russian form.
Бывшие бойцы частной военной компании «Вагнер» принимали участие в рядах РДК уже на Авдеевском направлении, на Лиманском направлении. И, безусловно, они принимали участие и в этой ограниченной военной операции, которую мы проводили на территории Российской Федерации, продолжаем проводить. Бойцы эти сделали правильный выбор.
And with that actual video statement right there, we are able to know that Wagner fighters are now fighting on the side of Russia, well, the Free Russian Army, and really in general on the side of Ukraine against the Russian government that they were fighting for not that long ago. I'd ended up uprising with the hot dog man, not the failure on YouTube, but the real hot dog man that actually did at least something with their life. And then that kind of fell apart, and then apparently some of them ran away and have now joined the Russian Volunteer Corps. But overall, very interesting to hear. And once again showing us that things are a little interesting so far going on with the whole incursion into Russia ordeal and the Russians fighting the Russians. But beyond that,
I love the fact that even though Nutsack was killed along with Utkin and all the other evil guys that ran Wagner, and their coup did fail to begin with in overthrowing Putin, they will never quit haunting Putin. They're going to keep coming back no matter what. And now they're coming back with the new enemy, the Coup 2.0, which is led by the Freedom of Russia Legion. They're joining them now to come. Their same mission is to go to Moscow as well. So they're doing it a little bit more slowly and methodical this time. And now Wagner's back once again, man. They can't get rid of those people.
Man, you know Putin's got to be damn crying right now. He's like, I just can't get rid of these people. He can't either. Like, he cannot get rid of them. They are just going to keep coming back over and over and over. They're never going to leave the Russian government alone at this point. And I think that Putin has ended up creating a phantom that might end up eating the Russian government alive to give it some time. And I think that there will be plenty of time. But beyond that, we didn't really get a lot of video and picture evidence from the Free Russian Army today. We assumed that today was a largely quiet day as far as the engagements went, or there's just no video footage coming out at the moment, and it may be coming out tomorrow. We're not entirely sure about that, but I can only say that we have no video or picture evidence to really talk about the events that are ongoing on the ground inside of the Belgrade Oblast at this moment. But we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news, and I'm going to be really quickly taking y'all a little bit further up and into the St. Petersburg area. This area of Russia is actually traditionally called Nizhny Novgorod, and Nizhny Novgorod is one of these states that ended up forming the Russian Empire a little bit later on. But it was really the Duchy of Muscovy that would end up creating the Russia that we would know today. However, the capital of the Russian Empire was in St. Petersburg until the beginning of the Russian Civil War, and then the capital ended up being thrown up in the air, and then once the dust had settled and the Bolsheviks were in control of Russia, then it moved from St. Petersburg to Moscow. That's why if you ever go to St. Petersburg, you'll actually see that there are much more modern facilities for a governance than you would see in another place. Like, for example, this building right here. Now, let me go and drop us down right here. This is the Winter Palace. It's now called the State Hermitage Museum, but back in the day, this whole entire thing was a part of the Winter Palace, which is where the Tsars of Russia would control the Russian Empire from. This is also where an uprising happened in 1905, where the Russian army ended up firing on the uprising and killing a good amount of them, which would kind of sow the seeds for Vladimir Lenin to come back after 1905, later on in 1917, and create the Russian Civil War that we all know and love, that would bring about some of the worst dictators that history has ever seen, and especially the worst dictators that ever ruled the modern-day Russian Federation and the rest of the Soviet Union. That's why this, really in reality, this place here, this building right here, is a lot more better for governance in reality than the Kremlin in Moscow, because the Kremlin is actually a pretty old, antiquated fort. This thing was built around the 15th century. Hundreds of years before the Winter Palace was built. The Winter Palace was built sometime in the early 1700s. This place here is utterly ridiculous. They actually had to build most of the buildings inside of the Kremlin in later parts of history so that way it was actually usable, but the only reason why the Kremlin is considered to be the real head of power inside of the Russian Federation is because back in Soviet times, they wanted to move away from the look of the imperialist czars, and so they decided to go with the Kremlin because it was more of a people's thing. You know, it was a fort of the people, not a palace of the bourgeoisie or something along those lines, and that's why they moved it down here to Moscow. Also,
like that big old wall they put up around it too, just for the safety aspect of it. You got to keep those people out, you know?
Well, actually, that's really like the only traditional standing part from like the 16th century. Like they cleared everything out inside of this Kremlin. Because also another thing to explain is that Kremlins are actually like the center part of most cities in Russia, because that's actually like really the only thing that the city once was the Kremlin, and then there would be a surrounding area around it. Kremlins in Russia are literally the equivalent of a castle here in, well, in Western Europe. It would be the equivalent of a castle or a chateau or something along those lines. Even if you go to a place like Kursk, which is down here, there we go. If we go to Kursk, you'll actually see that there's a Kremlin in the center of Kursk, if I can find it. And I'd be dipped. I swear I was able to find this thing the other day, and now when I come down here and throw myself here, I can't find the Kursk Kremlin. Let me just go type it in. Kursk Kremlin.
Where's that gremlin?
Where's that Kremlin gremlin? Well, I'd be dipped. Where the hell is it? There's one.
Well, they got a victory memorial. They might as well go ahead and tear that thing down now and turn it into the failure memorial.
Damn. That was brutal. I was like, oh my lord. But anyways, that's the end of that little tidbit right there. But beyond that, in this area of St. Petersburg, in the area of Nizhny Novgorod, sits a bomb factory that builds bombs. And we got to take a look at these bombs today with none other than the amazing, incredible Sergei Shoigu! This was put out by the Russian Ministry of Defense, showing them building Fab 3000 glide bombs. These things are like, I think, 4,000-pound bombs, and they're planning on making them glide. The day these things properly glide is the day pigs will fly. They will glide. I'm kind of exaggerating, but here's the clip. That right there is a Fab 3000, one of the stupidest looking bombs you can imagine. It looks like a cartoon Wile E. Coyote bomb. But it's actually got a lot of potency to it. It is like a 4,000-pound bomb with around, I think, 3,200 pounds of high explosive inside of it. So this thing is going to do some damage, and it is way larger than the Fab 500s we've seen used so far. But I have absolutely no idea what kind of an aircraft in the Russian Air Force could effectively carry these things anywhere near Ukraine and drop them. Because I don't think an Su-34 could carry a Fab 3000. But anyways...
Looks like a large power transformer.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? They're just going to drop a brick on them.
And what's Shoigu there for? Was he there to give him like pointers on how to make it or something? Was he turning into Kim Jong-un?
Dude, he's there to look at bombs and go, "Yep, this is a bomb." It's like that's it. That's all he can do because it's not like he's a bomb builder, you know. It's like, like what type of stupid crap is this? It's pointless to go here. Look, he's gonna look at the bomb. Yes, this is in fact a bomb.
В этом году будет 2630. Динамика по ним с 23 года. Первые корпуса пришли. Тоже заливка у нас считается. Около 10 тысяч. 30-миллиметровый осколочно-фугасный боеприпас 3 миллиона по году делал. 30-миллиметровый дальность. Блок 30.
Shoigu is like, dude, look at Shoigu. He holds a part of it. Yes, this is a part of a bomb. It blows up with the bomb.
Миллиметровый дальность.
Genius.
Блок 30.
Well, he's looking over the other guy. Huh?
Yeah, look at how nervous that guy is on the left. The guy he's like talking to right now, he is like twitching. He is like tweaking behind like Shoigu the whole time he's looking at the stuff. Like that dude's on edge.
Dude, he's on speed. He's on speed, man. And then Shoigu looks over at him. He's like, "So, are you sure all of these are bombs, or are some of them like demi bombs? You know, like toy bombs?" He's like, "Look, Mr. Shoigu, it's more bombs. We're in the bomb factory."
Девочек очень много работает.
We have these two women sitting here doing not a damn thing to make it look busy, like Soviet tanks.
Получает рассвет. Здесь ребята получают до 80 примерно. Те, кто стоят на корпусах, 130-140. С левой стороны, соответственно, корпуса. Здесь отгрузка готовой продукции. Сделали 4-5 заездов.
Well, what the hell was this? Like, this guy is, like, pointing out some crap. He's like, over here, we have the BAM factory. Over here, on the other side, we have more BAM factory. And the Shoigu guy just looks away. He acts like he could care less. Look at him. This guy's pointing over here. Shoigu looks the total opposite direction. Look at that.
He's trying to keep an eye on that tweaking guy over there. Make sure he's not about to spaz out.
Танковый выстрел начали делать в прошлом году 35 сделали, в этом году сделали полмиллиона. Вытовочку приводят до сих пор в соответствии посадкам по времени.
Dude, Shoigu looks
Man,
like
does
he's about to
Shoigu
kill
ever
himself.
speak? Yeah, does he ever speak? He's like the person off of Charlie Brown that's on the other end of the phone that goes wah, 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 wah. Like, he says nothing. He's like the man of few words.
Dude, look at this guy over here. He's going, "I need a cheeseburger." It's like, what a joke.
38 122-миллиметровых зарядов и 152-ки 138. На этот месяц план...
Now we're taking you to the next part of the BAM factory, where they continue to build BAMs. As you may know, it is a BAM factory.
На будущий год увеличить производительность до 2 миллионов 606 тысяч.
Oh, now he's angry. The first time he talks, he seems angry. Look at how hostile he
До
is.
2 миллионов 606 тысяч. Так точно.
Нет вопросов. Ставим задачу. А таким поставим задачу. Страной,
Страной, так точно.
He's like, the BAMs, they're BAMs, damn it. And this guy's like, yeah, I guess.
Это просто экземпляр мы для себя держим.
Правильно делаете.
Такой ИЗ 40-го года. 3 раза отремонтирован на нашем предприятии. Подарить вам.
Нет, а зачем? На фронт отправлять.
And now they take him for a walk around outside. And then they come back inside. And now this guy's going, "I'll need a chase bug about this big round," you know?
I'll sell you a hot dog, mate.
That's the end of the clip, but showing y'all a little bit of the fun times that the Russians are having up in the Nizhny Novgorod area in the bomb factory.
Wait a minute. Wait, Andy Hansen said that little guy with the sunglasses reminds me of Wimpy from Popeye. I'll pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That's
Well, there he is.
look at Wimpy, man.
Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Man, that could be Popeye back up there. The tweaking guy, he could be a Popeye maybe if you just like go and like and take some steroids real quick, get those arms all pumped up, you know, juicing.
Man, but wait a minute, we need to go back and look at the tweaker near the start. Right here. Dude, this is where the tweaker was tweaking the tweakingest. You know, look at this.
Корнеты Согласен. В этом году будет 2600.
Look at him.
Динамика по ним с 23
he's
года
definitely
первого
tweaking.
корпуса пришли. Тоже заливка у нас считается. Около 10 тысяч. 30-миллиметровый осколочно-фугасный боеприпас 3 миллиона по году делали. 30-миллиметровый дальность. Блок 30.
Look, God, look at that dodgy stare that he did. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. We can only look at the bomb-making factory enough. It's a bomb factory in Nizhny Novgorod. Sure, you went there today, and it was quite the joke. But anyways, moving on from that and out of the St. Petersburg area, it's time for us to move on down back into Ukraine. It's time for us to start getting on into a little bit more news, but particularly to once again circle back and talk a little bit about those Wagner forces that have joined hands with the RDK, a part of the Free Russian Army, and are now starting to fight against the Russian government. Many people have had many different things to say about that since I've dropped that news here on air, but most importantly, Matthew has a very interesting thing to say about it because he was actually the one to break the news earlier today. And so, Matthew, what do you got?
All right, so now that we know that Wagner forces are joining the Freedom of Russia Legion and attacking Belgrade, as of today it's confirmed, is this coup 2.0. 60% said that Wagner is returning to get Putin, 19% said I need more details, and 16% said it's nothing, just a few soldiers joining up. And in my opinion, I think the reason why we saw the Wagner disappear the way they were is because some of them were diverging off to go join the rebels here, the Freedom of Russia Legion, to come back and fulfill their ultimate mission. Because remember, Prigozhin died basically as a martyr, and so did the other leaders of Wagner as well. So some of these guys that were really supercharged by that, thinking, I'm going to come back one day and get revenge for the dear leader, Prigozhin, they're still thinking about that. And they're actually now actively fighting in Belgorod to come back and haunt Putin. And this time, it looks like they might be able to get a little bit closer because it's really going quite well in Belgorod. And I don't think Putin has any way to hold them off. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I think Wagner is coming back to get Putin again, take two. It looks like they're trying to join up. Not a lot of them did. It's probably like a couple of dozen of them, maybe not the tens of thousands that the Wagner once was, but there's still some of them there. And that means that they are continuing on that legacy of standing up against the Russian government and fighting them. It looks like this time they might not be backing out, though, without a fight like the Wagner did, just driving up to Moscow and then giving up once they got there. So, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, truly the best I can, because that's all I can do is the best I can. We all know that. But moving on from that and on into our location unknowns, we have a couple of interesting ones today, starting off with this truck MLRS that was being fired on a training ground inside of western Ukraine. It is a truck MLRS like we've seen before. We can see one of the 122mm rockets being fired right there. Very cool to see. Moving on from that, we can see them firing again. We can also see this accompanied by a Buhanka. But moving on from that and into our next picture, we can see them hand-loading the MLRS rockets, which have to be a workout. We can also see them loading them in right there, just shoving them on in, and then preparing the MLRS to fire once more. Also, Matthew, aren't those the headsets that we have for shooting?
No, those are the high-end, like, tactical ones, I think, that have, like, comm hookups and everything to them. Ours are a little bit, actually not a little bit, actually quite more low-end than that.
Well, it looks like him to me, but anyways, with that, we're now going to be...
Ours are good replicas. We got good fakes.
Got
we're looking the part, but we're not actually the part.
Man, we them LARPers. But anyways, we also got to see a Ukrainian heavy bomber hitting some Russian positions, part of the 23rd Mechanized Brigade. Here's the clip, and the trap remix ensues. Ooh! Got him dead on. See them dropping another one. Ooh! Getting them again. And again. And you guessed it. Again. Ooh! Goodness gracious. They don't get a break down there, do they? The answer's no. They never get a break. Well, that's the end of that clip, and I gotta say, very nice to see that they were able to knock out some Russians with the Ukrainian heavy bombers. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a picture of another Ukrainian MiG-29 flying up there in the skies. It had 4 R-73s and 2 R-27 air-to-air missiles. These are actually the radar variants, so I think they're the R-27Rs. But still, really nice to see and great to know that they are up there doing their thing in the skies of Ukraine. Once again, flying those Ukrainian colors and putting them all over the plane. It's a really nice look. I gotta say, massive respect. And also massive respect to the Ukrainian pilots who continue to go up there each and every single day and continue to try and face down the Russian Air Force wherever they may be, or try and shoot down any Russian air targets wherever they may be. Also, another cool thing about this MiG-29 is that we can also see that it has the external fuel tank added, which is very cool because the MiG-29 was one of the few aircraft in the Soviet Air Force that could carry an external fuel tank. Many people do not know this, and it's completely fine if you do not know this, but external fuel tanks are something that's fairly standard for Western aircraft, but not so standard for Soviet-era aircraft. And I'll see if I can find y'all a picture here of here's a Polish MiG-29 with the external fuel tank attached right there underslung to the MiG-29. You can see these on, let's say, an F-15. I'm sure I'll be able to find these quite easily. And they're literally in almost every picture. So I'll pull this over here. These are the external fuel tanks on the F-15s. They're these giant-looking bomb things that are attached to the wings. Those actually carry several hundred, I believe, total combined. It's like 1,000 gallons of fuel that this F-15 can juice off of in the middle of its air operations. You can also put a third one on the F-15, as seen right there, which even provides an additional, I believe, 500 extra gallons of fuel, meaning that there's about 1,500 extra gallons of fuel for the F-15 to operate off of, including its internal fuel tanks, which gives it a massive amount of time in the air compared to its Soviet counterparts. The Su-27, which is the direct opposite, well, the direct antithesis to the F-15 in the Soviet world, does not have, from what I understand, any ability to carry an external fuel tank. You can see this right here. There are no external fuel tanks attached to the Su-27. And I have never seen one carrying an external fuel tank. I have tried to find, as best I can, one that did carry one. Because it seems a little bizarre that the Soviet Union would design an aircraft as a direct competitor to the F-15 and not give it the ability to carry an external fuel tank. But from everything I've been able to find everywhere around the world, I have never seen a single Su-27 carrying an external fuel tank, meaning that this thing only has the range that is provided from its internal fuel tanks inside the aircraft. There is no way to modify or enhance its range by adding more fuel tanks, and this hinders the Su-27's ability to loiter in an airspace, or for that matter, to increase its range, because it just doesn't have the fuel to do it. But with that, I hope that does share with y'all a small and completely pointless tidbit of news about aircraft that the Soviet Union and the United States Air Force, or the US and the Soviets, produced way back in the day, but this is one of the few aircraft in the Soviet Union that could have an external fuel tank attached. And that also, I have to add this, that also was not because they were trying to extend the range of the MiG-29, it kind of does, but the reality is that the MiG-29's engines are so fuel inefficient that there really is no good way to get any kind of range out of this aircraft unless if you add the external fuel tank. Beyond that, it consumes so much fuel that I think at the best, it has 27 minutes of fuel without the afterburner on, which is a very small amount of time in the air. Or if you have the afterburner on the entire time, it has about 12 minutes of fuel at best. So not a lot. It's almost like the same amount of flight time that a modern RC plane gets these days. But anyway,
that's what I was about to say too, man. It's like the battery life of an RC jet.
Yeah, and it's insane when you think about it, because this thing guzzles fuel. Let me go here really quickly. MiG-29. Let me go pull up the size of its fuel tanks, so that way you can get an idea of how big the fuel tanks are, because they're not massive, but they're fairly big. So let me go down here to the stats page, and let me try and get some stats. So this thing has a fuel capacity in its internal tank of 7,716 pounds of fuel, and it will burn through that at most efficient consumption rates at around 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
With the afterburner on, it'll burn around 7.7 thousand pounds of fuel in about 12 minutes. So this thing is an absolute guzzler of fuel. It's an unbelievably inefficient aircraft. And this right here is the actual engines that power the MiG-29. They'll have 2 of them in a MiG-29, and that's what the actual engine looks like.
That's the fuel like inefficient one.
Yes, this is the fuel inefficient one beyond belief.
It looks too simple. That's probably why it doesn't use fuel very well. Like there's not enough pipes and stuff on it.
Let me see. Well, really quickly, I want to see if I can get a picture of a MiG-29 in flight here on this Wikipedia page, because you'll be able to see it. You'll see it when you see it, and you won't be able to unsee it beyond this point. The MiG-29 burns fuel so inefficiently, it leaves this giant, like, thick black cloud behind it as it flies. You can actually see a little bit of it back there at the bottom left. All military jets do this, but the MiG-29 does this to an unbelievable degree, and I believe that back in some times when MiG-29s were being spotted in the air, they weren't necessarily spotted by radar signature by the naked eye or anything like that, or by the aircraft flying past. It was really spotted because of the giant, thick black cloud that is always shooting out of the rear of the jet as it flies along. Things not that great. I mean, things not that great as an aircraft. It's all right, I'd suppose. It's comparable a little bit to an F-16, a little bit, but it's hardly as able or nimble as an F-16 really is. I wish, you know what? I'm actually going to take this off screen really quickly and see if I can find y'all a picture of a MiG-29 in flight, because y'all have to see the exhaust. Here we go. Okay, so this is a really good picture. This one appears to be from the, I would assume, the Pakistani Air Force, or the, no, actually this would be the Indian Air Force, I believe. But look at that freaking smoke coming out of the engines. I mean, it's insane.
Man, it's rolling more coal than a southern truck squatted like the Carolina squat.
Man, call this thing a redneck because it'd be rolling coal, but
it's a straight pipe jet.
My lord, man, I wish I could find a better picture just showing the exhaust of a MiG-29. It is literally the craziest thing to see when you actually see it. You're like, oh my god. Like, this thing here is responsible for all global pollution. Like, if these things were banned from flying, I think the quality of the air would massively improve. But
man, this burns more fuel than Taylor Swift's jet to a concert.
Oh, oh no. No.
Oh
no. But let's see here. Man, I can't find a good picture for that, sadly, but still, you can kind of get the idea right there. But anyways, moving on from that little bit of location unknown news and that massive tidbit of facts, it's time for us to move on into our next bit, where we got to see some Russians play fighting with the Ukrainian kamikaze drone. It ended up not going well, and sadly we can't play the music, but it's the typical circus music, so y'all kind of got a good idea of where we're going. So, we can see the Russians here, one with a shovel, the other one just kind of walking around, and we see this one here throwing up his hands, challenging the drone to a fight.
What are they doing now?
They're trying to whack this Ukrainian FPV drone with a shovel.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It's a genius idea, Matthew. Nothing can go wrong. Something went wrong. Well, those Russians are now sleeping. And it appears that it's not smart to try and fight an FPV drone with shovels. Remember, take notes, everyone, so that way if you ever have to fight an FPV drone, you remember that shovels are not the option. There are better options out there than the shovel. But it's time for us to move on into our last bit of location unknown news before we really start to move into that Ukrainian frontline juice. It's time for us to talk about the Russian casualty report.
Oh, dear. 3 Bobcats, 3 special equipment. I love to see it. I tell you what. And also, like the guy on the right, I always got to call someone out here. Oh, that's Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
But the guy below said we need to add refineries and fuel depots. And we sure do. Where's our refineries at Kyiv Independent? We want those so bad.
We want them. We want them, damn it. But beyond that, 3 Bobcat skid steers were destroyed. Very nice to see. And not only that, 750 Russian soldiers were lost over the past 24 hours, both killed and wounded. Very good numbers. 16 armored personnel carriers were also knocked out, along with 44 supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 26 artillery pieces, 10 drones, 1 MLRS, and the 3 special equipment vehicles. Overall, it was a really good day. I mean, it was a great day. The Ukrainians were doing an incredible job, once again, defending the front lines and holding their own. We can't ask more of the Ukrainian armed forces, and they continue to do the impossible every single day. Not only that, it was so impossible that Putin actually had to come in and make a direct comment on the casualty report, which I guess the guy can cope and seethe, kind of like hot dog men. But beyond that, it's time for us to move on from the Russian casualty report, and time for us to move on into the Ukraine war news at large. There was a decent amount that happened in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions today, but absolutely nothing happened on video and picture evidence in the Zaporizhia Oblast or all the way down to the Kherson Oblast either. It was completely nothing at all. But before we get into all of this big news, a lot of people have been talking about Russia is apparently preparing for a war with NATO faster than expected, at least according to what some people are saying. And some folks are starting to talk about that and hypothesize about this whole ordeal. Some people are saying that they're preparing for the worst. Some people are saying that they're preparing to attack NATO. Some people are saying that they aren't preparing for a war with NATO, and other people say that they're unsure, a little unsure and a little undecided. But a lot of people have many different opinions on this topic, and Matthew, what do you think about it?
All right, so on the topic of analysts saying that Russia is preparing for a conventional war with NATO faster than expected, it looks like 44% said Russia is only preparing for the worst, 29% said Russia is preparing to attack NATO, and 18% said Russia isn't preparing for war with NATO at all. And in my opinion, I don't think that Russia is actually getting ready to attack NATO. I think that they are preparing for the fact that they might want to attack maybe a soldier or two that might enter Ukraine maybe in the near future, and that would maybe be considered an attack on NATO. I'm not sure how that would actually be taken by NATO itself. For example, what I'm saying here is if France sends in soldiers to Ukraine and Russia hits one of those guys by accident or intentionally, will that start a conflict between NATO and Russia directly? That seems to be what you'd think is a straightforward question. You would think it would be the answer being yes. But in reality, though, it could be more complicated than that. It could be some gray area. NATO could decide to ignore it, or they might feel compelled to take some action. It's totally up to them, and there's really no guidelines on that at the moment. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that Russia is probably preparing for the worst, probably preparing for something to happen inside of Russia, in my opinion, because preparing for a war with NATO is completely pointless. The war will be lost. There's no way that they can prepare. And that's not just saying that as a propaganda side of things. If I was to go into the in-depth breakdown, it is truly just an unwinnable war for the Russians on a technological level. There's no way that they can compare to Western naval abilities, Western air power, Western ground power. There's no way that they can compare on any level. They automatically lose the war at sea, which is probably one of the most important ones for them, because they would have to try and secure some vital supply routes with other neutral countries to be able to try and get the supplies they would need to keep strategic infrastructure running. They'd immediately lose that war from the outset. Then they would lose the air war, because the United States and other Western countries in NATO have massive seed abilities, which means that they're able to search and engage active radar systems or something along those lines. But beyond that, they are not able to conduct any of those kinds of operations against NATO. NATO has nothing but endless abilities to conduct those operations against Russian SAM sites and destroy them with great levels of efficiency. That means that Russian air defense is completely destroyed. On top of that, the Russian Air Force is so small and has such a small ability to project beyond Russia's borders that they would lose the air battle then, not just from the ground-to-air side of things, but from the air-to-air side of things. They would also lose that as well. On top of that, you're considering that an Su-27 or a comparable airframe is going up against an F-35 Lightning II, which has the ability to not even be picked up on the Su-27's radar. That is already a losing fight as far as one can imagine. I mean, there's literally no comparison. If you can't even pick up, and this is a big thing I have to talk about here, because people just don't really understand this. If you cannot pick up a fighter on radar, and your radar is not configured to be strong enough, or to be able to pick up an F-35, which the Su-27, the Su-35, the Su-33, and even the Su-57, their radars are not configured to be able to pick up an F-35, and also the geometry and the way the F-35 is made deflects radar waves so well, none of them bounce back to the Su-27 to even be picked up at all. If you cannot pick up a aircraft on radar in a modern air fight, that means that you've already lost the fight. If this F-35 can do that to an Su-27, it's over. And the F-35 can easily do that. They can easily lock onto an Su-27 or any other kind of Russian air superiority fighter and shoot it down. That is going to be a winning battle for the United States. On top of that, you also have to consider that if an F-35 Lightning, which we have hundreds of them now, is conducting a seed operation, not only is it going to be destroying Russian radar sites, the Russian radar sites can't even detect this thing and engage it unless if it opens up its internal bays. And that means that they open up the internal bays and allow the missiles to be let loose and fly. That's the only time that an F-35 can actually be picked up on radar, and those amounts of times are going to be fairly intermittent and few and far in between, to the point they're never really going to be able to fire off a SAM successfully and be able to take this thing down. On top of that, the F-35 is probably truly the best aircraft in the world at conducting a seed mission at the moment, because the F-35 has this incredibly cool piece of tech, Matthew, and it's a decoy. Do you know how the decoy on the F-35 works, Matthew?
Isn't it something that's released behind it and it gives off like a fake radar signal or something? It's like a probe.
Yeah, it's attached to the F-35 by a tether, and it's a little decoy that emits pulses that make it look like the F-35 if it's even able to be picked up on radar, meaning that the missile would track that decoy instead and explode far behind the F-35 instead of on it, once again making it one of the best seed aircraft in the world. This thing would devastate the Russian Air Force and probably the Russian ground forces as well, just because it can't be picked up on radar for the most part. And on top of that, there's countless hundreds of these things. And then on top of that, they're being integrated with the rest of the U.S. Air Forces, F-16s, F-35s, the F-22s, which are probably going to be retired if there was ever a war with Russia. By that time, most of those airframes would be out of service. But then there would be AWACS supporting those, the E-3s, the E-7s. You would have an endless amount of support. And on top of that, aerial refuelers that are constantly airborne, making sure that these things have the longest amount of loiter time, getting the best out of each and every aircraft. The United States Air Force would dominate the Russians in the air and on the ground before the Army or the ground forces ever even got involved. Then you're talking about the U.S. Army, just the U.S. Army alone, not including the French, the British, and the Germans, and the Polish as well, that has an unbelievable artillery arm. The Air Force would take care of most things that the Army would do with the artillery, but just in case there's anything left behind, the Army then clears it out with the artillery, then they roll forward the armor and the infantry, which are pretty much just the cleanup crew, and it's a full sweep. There's no way that the Russians can really deal with the Western doctrine at this point, because they don't really have any technology to counter anything that we have, or anything that we possess at the moment. So it's a complete losing battle for them. That's why I believe that they wouldn't be trying to prepare for a war with NATO, because they're doing that on a conventional level. They've already lost. It doesn't matter how much they prepare. It's a losing battle for them. The only way that they could really prepare for a war with NATO is to start increasing their production of intercontinental ballistic missiles, because if they ever enter a war with us, it's going to become so bad for them that they have no option but to fire intercontinental ballistic missiles to try and at least destroy us in the process of us destroying them. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, and also give a little bit of an in-depth analysis as to why I would believe the Russians really wouldn't stand that much of a chance. But before we move on into the Ukraine war frontline news, we have to really quickly address a couple of questions from the chat, because some of y'all have been throwing in some really interesting questions tonight, and I want to make sure that we're able to address them and talk about them. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and first up, we have a very generous $50 donation from Hokey Redneck, the longtime channel legend, and thank you, Hokey, as always. I feel like we're saying your name almost every single night now. That's how much you're supporting the channel, and we greatly do appreciate it. He says, are old Russian MLRS unguided?
And I would have to say no. Old Russian MLRSs are completely unguided. There's no guidance system inside of a Grad. And I'll show the Grad BM-21, which is one of the most common Grads out there in the world. This one is mounted onto a Ural 4320, but that is a Grad system right there. These things have been around for quite a while. They've been around since 1963, and back then they did not have any kind of really good, well, really any guidance systems for rocket artillery on the ground. That's something that is specifically a Western deal as well, having guided MLRS rockets like in the HIMARS or the Mars, the M1, the M242, I believe. That is, well, the M240 Mars, I believe it's called, but that is entirely a Western thing. These rockets that the Russians have are usually unguided. On top of that, you have the Uragan, and let me type in the Uragan MLRS. Right here, this is the Uragan, and this thing is also unguided as well. It's just a larger caliber rocket, but still no guidance system. And then you have the Smerch MLRS, which is, I believe, even larger than the Uragan, if I'm correct. This is like 230 millimeter. Let me check. Let's see here. What caliber is it? It does not say. Maybe it says it up here. No, it does not. Oh, 220 millimeter, and then the Smerch is like a 300 something millimeter. So let me make sure to check. This thing is, well, I'd be dipped. Why in the world did they make it so hard to get the calibers of these rocket launchers? I'm assuming that this thing's like a 300 something millimeter. Oh yeah, 300 millimeter multiple rocket launcher. So you have small, medium, and large. And even the large ones aren't guided either. It's just that these things have a wickedly long range, but still completely unguided, just kind of blanketing an entire area. So none of the Russian rocket launch systems are guided. And I hope that does address that fairly well, Hoagie Redneck, because that is a good question. A lot of people would think that they are guided, but they aren't. None of them are. And that's why the Russian army has had a problem conducting precision strikes, because they don't really have a lot of weapons that can conduct guided strikes or precision strikes at long range. None of their MLRS batteries possess that ability, and that's what also really sets apart Western artillery forces, because we look at the M240 Mars, or the M240, let's see, MLRS. M270 MLRS, sorry everyone. But if you look at this one right here, not only are the smaller rockets that the M270 fires guided, but also the ATACMS, which is the far larger rocket that it can fire. And let me see if I can find a picture of that one firing. And I know everyone's seen it over the course of the war, but I just want to make sure to show it to y'all again. And sadly, I can't find it for this one, but the M270 can actually carry 2 of them. But this right here, this thing is wildly effective because you can actually precision strike or guide these rockets onto their exact target, which really gives the U.S. Army or Western nations, like for example this Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force M270, a huge leeway to get a lot more potency out of their firepower. Instead of just kind of blanketing an area and praying that something gets hit, you fire all of these rockets and they will fire all of these missiles and they end up hitting something. Another massive disparity in between Russian firepower, which is far larger on paper, and Western firepower, which is smaller but is always much more efficient. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you so much once again for the incredible, massive support, Hoagie Redneck, and once again helping this channel to keep running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also I gotta say, Enforce, like I feel like I am like tweaking tonight, like that guy in that Russian video. Like I drank that chai tea stuff right there. I think it had a lot of caffeine in it or something. I'm over here like twitching around like Conor McGregor when he just came up to like a press conference or something. Oh yes, it's in the store of life. It's in the store of life forever. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat. We have a $20 donation from Heather Fitzgibbon, as well as a $20 super chat from Jose Diaz. And sadly, no comment to address on either one of those. But thank you very much, Heather and Jose, very much for that support. And we do greatly appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank you so much for the support to both of y'all and helping this channel to keep on running. It means a lot to us. And while y'all didn't throw in comments, I have to say that we are always greatly appreciative to hear both of y'all's names, both Heather Fitzgibbon and Jose Diaz, are here with us tonight, and happy to know that y'all are still enjoying the channel and wanting to support us so that way we can help to keep this thing possible and help to make it running. We'll help to run it, because for some reason I'm tweaking too. But beyond that, thank you to both of y'all once again. Thank you so much, Jose Diaz, for saying you are amazing, and thank you, Heather Fitzgibbon, for putting in the Shiba Inu with the #1 flag. We're always greatly appreciative to see both of y'all here, and it's wonderful to have y'all here with us tonight as we continue to cover pretty impressive and pretty amazing news. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hoagie Redneck. Once again, he threw in a 20 this time. And thank you once again, Hoagie. He says, who in the chat still has their selective service card? And I still got mine. It's over here in my filing cabinet right over here, because we were told to keep that in case they come looking for you and say that you didn't fill it out. So I've still got it over here just in case, and proudly displayed in the file cabinet. But Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Hoagie Redneck. And I also have mine in my filing cabinet, because it is a part of an American citizen, an American male citizen's duty to sign up, to be ready to serve the nation if they're ever called upon. It is a part of your democratic duty to protect this United States and the Western world that we've been able to help foster, build, and maintain around the entirety of the world. And so I do have mine in my filing cabinet as well, just in case they come around and say, hey, are you a patriot? I can whip it out and go, I'm a patriot. I serve my country.
Whip it out.
But with that, thank you so much once again. Well, I'm willing to serve my country. I haven't served, but I'm willing to serve my country. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, Hoagie Redneck. I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel a second time already tonight and helping to make this channel possible. Cannot say it enough. Each one of y'all that support the channel are massively appreciated. No one has to support the channel if they don't want to. But the fact that people appreciate this channel enough, like you, Hoagie Redneck, that you would come and support the channel just out of your sheer kindness, that is absolutely incredible. And I thank you so much for that once again. And with that, I gotta say, long live the Lee Spring Army, and just thank you. But really quickly, y'all, I have to say this. Matthew and me, I don't know about you, Matthew, but I feel like we have been burning out of both ends for weeks now. Like, I really feel like, I feel like it's starting to catch up for both of us, maybe.
Oh no, it hadn't caught up to me really. It's just like all of a sudden out of nowhere, like 10 minutes ago, that caffeine like hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like just like a rush of energy. I'm telling you what, man. I'm not usually not this energetic this late at night, but goodness, like I think I drank too much. But it's got me going. I'm telling you what, my brain's going at 100 miles an hour right now. I'm thinking about all the stuff I hadn't done.
And with that, while Matthew sounds like he's absolutely zooted, it is time for us to move on out of this question segment and on into the frontline news, because we have loads of frontline news to cover today. A lot of it. And it's time for us to move up into that northeastern area where that offensive will never happen that the Russians were planning. We got to see that the Ukrainians were firing some rockets at the Russians in this area, and here's the clip. Turn around every now and then. And they're loading it into the truck MLRS. Hold this, he says, as they shove the rocket in.
Hold my beer.
And who the hell's the guy in the gray, dude? He's like 6'9" or something.
Dude, that dude's huge.
Dude, that guy could literally just chuck the rocket at someone like a spear and kill him. That's like, dang.
That's one of those like Viking guys that could have snatched somebody up by the neck. Look at him.
Man, dude, I'd be scared to be around this guy.
Like a tank.
That guy, if that guy gets pissed off at you, he could just snap you in two like a twig. And they're talking about how today they're going to fire one missile, and they'll send out the drone to get fire corrections, and then they'll start to fire the MLRS. And we see the reporter talking about they're getting an insight on how the grad batteries work, or at least the light grad batteries. Considering that this isn't a full-on grad, this is only like a half grad. But also, while we're showing this clip, I want to thank a brand new 1,000 subscribers for joining the channel today. It's been unbelievable. It's been like that every day for the past 2 weeks now. And we got to thank all of y'all who have joined once again tonight, the brand new 1,000 who are now a part of the Lee Spring Army. Over the past 10 days, we have literally raised an entire Roman legion and a half's worth of new subscribers that have joined the channel, which is mental. It's absolutely insane. And I got to thank all of y'all once again for finding this channel worthwhile to watch and subscribing so that way you can watch more of it. Getting back from that little plug.
It's crazy, man, because like even like today, like the 1,000 subscribers nearly, it's we also got like 200,000 views on the daily short war summary as well today. It's just the channel is growing by such leaps and bounds. If you go look at charts of the subscriber growth on the channel, it's like almost going straight up at this point. Like it's an exponential curve right here at the last like week or so, or a couple of weeks. It's wild growth, and like huge thanks to everyone for subscribing to our channel, because it really does make us proud to like actually make the videos, because we see a ton of people watching and happy with the content, and it keeps us motivated and going.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible stuff. And let's see here. Oh man, Bruce Lee said only a half grad. Did his college lose accreditation? Yes, it did. It did. It lost accreditation. We now see them trudging through the snow and getting back up to their grad and spooling up the wire that they used to fire the grad.
Also, one of our Alabama viewers, Manchild, said that he saw like one of those like rocket trucks near Pelham, Alabama, which is around the Enforcer HQ kind of area here, in front of the old Waffle House. There's like a lot of military equipment that like makes its way through Alabama just all the time. We've seen MRAPs and all kinds of stuff just parked on trucks like around the Enforcer HQ. It's just wild how much military equipment goes through the state.
I wish I had taken a picture of this, Matthew, and I didn't even bring this up to you, but a while ago, when I was, like months ago, when I had time to go to the Talladega CMP range, I was out there and I was driving back and I pulled into a parking lot for a second to try and figure out what I was going to eat on the way home. And when I pulled into the parking lot, there was an M109 Paladin, one of those big American self-propelled guns, the artillery pieces, sitting on the back of an 18-wheeler. And I was like, oh my god, I was like, that's crazy. And then I didn't take a picture of it for some weird reason. Because we actually had a U.S. Air Force base security MRAP in the area, kind of where we were, and I ended up taking a picture of that because I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then I never took a picture of the Paladin, which was probably way cooler. But with that, it's time for us to move on from that northeastern area, watching that MLRS at work, and time to move a little bit further down towards Fatove, where we got to see the 63rd Brigade destroying a BMP-3. Actually, it's the 60th Brigade. But here comes the drone. Oh, get him. And there we go, dead on the nail. Kabooey, kabooey. And that BMP is smoking. And also, by the way, since LSA Sergeant Figment is getting off a little bit early, if everyone could wish LSA Sergeant Figment a happy birthday, it was his birthday today. So happy birthday to LSA Sergeant Figment. I hope you had a great night watching, and I hope you get a great night's sleep. But want to make sure to give him a big happy birthday, and I hope everyone in the Lee Spring Army gives LSA Sergeant Figment a big happy birthday. But with that,
happy birthday.
It is time for us to move on from that clip in the Svatove area and down into the Kremena Forest. Really quickly, I'm going to bring you all to the frontline update, and we're going to check out this area. So, what do we have? Over the past 24 hours, it appears the Russians have not made a single advance forward. Shocker, I know. But beyond that, it's time for us to take a look at these clips. First, we got to see a Russian tank get destroyed. We're going to be muting that, but we can see them lining up the grenade. There goes the grenade. It's an M67 frag grenade. It goes straight through the chicken wire, right into the cupola, and down into the ammunition. This is also a T-80 BVM, a pretty nice main battle tank. It explodes right on top of the ammo, which is now smoldering. And will probably begin to cook off really quickly. We can already see that the cook-off is beginning, and it's starting to grow inside of the turret. Call that a sizzler. Is that a Chinese ATV? It is. Look at that. They dropped all the Chinese go-kart in here.
Oh, dear Lord, man. That thing is just like, there's no, like, geometry to it. It's just a square.
It's a cube. It's a cube. Uh-oh. Oh, toasty. It's cooking.
Some bot in the live chat just said, these guys are in love with themselves. It's like, well, I mean, I'm not in love with myself, but I don't hate myself either. It's like, you gotta have some respect, bot. Have some self-respect.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it could be worse. It's either, we are all right with ourselves, or we hate ourselves like Hot Dog Man. One or the other. I mean, we'll take your pick. Take your pick. What'll it be?
Sometimes it's justified, though. Like, sometimes, like, if you act a certain way, it's justified to be like, oh, I don't like me. But, I mean, if you act normal and stuff like that, and you're not hating on everybody and attacking folks constantly, I mean, you have some self-respect, you know.
But remember, folks, one life lesson that can always be learned, and this is one thing I've learned so well in the Ukraine war community, is pick your friends wisely. Because you pick the wrong friends, I don't know, they might come back to bite you a little bit later. You never know. You never know. But anyways, here is the clip of a Russian walking outside of his little bunker, and then a Ukrainian cluster round lands like just 50 yards away.
Говори.
Fireworks.
Пизду, бля.
And then the first thing he goes, пиздик, блин. But anyways, that's the end of that little clip right there. Once again, showing us that action is still going on in this area. And I don't think it's going to be dying down anytime soon either. But with that, it's time for us to move on Kremena and down towards Bakhmut, near to the Opitne area, where we got to see another Russian BMP get destroyed. This one was destroyed by the famous 93rd Brigade, the Signum unit of the 93rd, which is really a Sigma. And when you see the drone hit, exploding on the front of the BMP and helping to cook it up faster. Slaw. We love the slaw. Beyond that, it's time for us to move on into our next clip further down near the area of Kurtimivka, where we got to see some Russians with a grenade launcher. Actually, I'm sorry. This is actually a Ukrainian from the 3rd Brigade with a grenade launcher. Why in the world did I say Russian? Let me change that right here, right now. Ukrainians with a grenade launcher. There we go. So, this is a soldier from the 3rd Brigade with a Turkish RDS-40 grenade launcher. It looks pretty similar to the American design, multi-cylinder grenade launcher, still pretty neat. And I gotta say, very nice to see them out there enjoying these grenade launchers. I hope they enjoy them well. Moving on from that and into our next little bit of news, because nothing really changed in the Bakhmut front line today. And just in case of y'all are wanting to see that, I can move us down there and I could show it to y'all. This Ukrainian defense, it holds up well. Very well, indeed. So, here's the past 24 hours. No frontline changes to speak of. Moving on from that and out of the Bakhmut area, it's time for us to go down to Avdiivka. And it's time for us to take a look at what's happening down here. Oh, it looks like the Russians move forward 20 to 30 yards. Oh, it's a sweep. But beyond that, the Ukrainians are largely holding their ground, inflicting high casualties on Russian forces, and moving into the area of Krasnoyarivka, we got to see that a panicked Russian armored personnel carrier ended up driving into a lake, pretty much full speed. Here's the clip. There it is, and it's going full speed right into... Oh, it's throwing some Russians off. We can see the Russians running. And we can see right here the drone looking at the APC that's now in the lake. We can also see one Russian there who's apparently relaxing by the side of the lake. And as that clip ends right there, and we get to see the blueness of that water, that beautiful blue water that's probably toxic, actually, Matthew has some big breaking news to share with you all about what's going on in Ukraine right now. And so, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so currently in Ukraine, sadly, there is another major, and it's a big, very big ballistic missile attack on Ukraine. It looks like most regions of Ukraine are under a solid red alert at the moment, and there are tons of ballistic missile launches coming from Crimea, and it looks like there's so many launches happening that looks like OSINT sources can't even keep up with it. Also, there are reportedly Kinzhals in the air at the moment. And also, Russia is specifically targeting electrical facilities as well, and Kharkiv is in a total blackout. Most of the lights are off in Kharkiv because the electrical systems have been taken out, from what we understand. It looks like the mayor is saying not to panic, and it looks like there are Tu-22M strategic bombers in the air heading toward Ukraine as we speak. So another major attack. And it looks like the air raid alarms are going off and telling people to go to the shelters in the subway stations and down below to seek shelter from these missiles coming in. So another large attack, sadly, and once again, Russia is trying to get revenge for those oil refinery attacks, and it looks like Ukraine is taking defensive measures as we speak. But that's all the news we have on it at the moment, so unfortunately, I'm going to throw it back to you.
And with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little breaking news update on the current air attack, and moving on to the area of Staromykhailivka, where we got to see the 3rd Brigade destroying some Russian equipment here in this area. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the Russian columns advancing, and we can see this really well-edited destruction clip. They edited this together like it was a hit piece. Very nice. It literally is a hit piece. It's just clips of them hitting different stuff. Chinese ATV, tanks, infantry, truck filled with them, a tank, another APC, some Russians, more tanks, lots of tanks, more infantry, lots of infantry, and that's the end of the clip. But overall, very nice to see they were able to knock out these forces effectively and continue up their good work. Moving on from that, we also got to see that a BM-21 Grad was destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone not that far away from the area we just showed on film. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the drone coming on in. getting ready to slam into that Grad. It looks like the Russians are running away as it hits the Grad and blows it up. We can now see the Grad is on fire from the first drone, and it looks like this next drone might be coming in to help take it on out. Oh, we can see the Russians running away in a car, so now the drone is going to target this car. The Russians are running as fast as they truly can, but sadly, that is just not fast enough for them. Rest in pieces. That's the end of the clip. But a huge shout out to the Ukrainian drone forces that was once again able to take care of a BM-21 Grad and a Russian evac vehicle. We now see a Russian car driving by and looking at the burned down Grad, which is right there in front of them. And it appears that they're going to be running away. Anyone see any parallels here to the clip we just saw of the FPV drone chasing a car down?
This dude can't drive men well that good.
No, he cannot. No, he cannot. Apparently, he was a little bougie. But beyond that, that's the end of the clip. Nice to see they were able to take out a Grad. And with that, we're moving on to our next clip, where we got to see the Ukrainians taking 8 more prisoners, actually, near to the area of, I believe it was, and let me make sure, Marinka or Oleksandrivka. Here is the clip, and we're going to be muting the loud bagpipes in the background because it's probably copyright. But we can see our 7 Russians right here, all surrendering and giving up. We see the video being heavily edited here, but still showing us the Russian prisoners. I gotta say, the Ukrainians are really going ham with the editing these days. But that's the end of the clip, and nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to take more Russian prisoners. Speaking of Russians getting, giving up on the war, it appears that the Ukrainians were able to forcefully give up, forcefully help the Russians give up on the war down in the Novomykhailivka area, as they were able to destroy 3 Russian armored vehicles in this area today. I'm going to be muting that. Well, we can see here the Ukrainian intro, very nice, and now we can see the Russian vehicles on the move. The one in the middle already got knocked out. We now see another one get knocked out. We now see more Russian vehicles getting obliterated. And another one. And maybe even another one. Oh, actually, a cluster bomb got called in. They got the Call of Duty hit reticle in the middle of the camera just to make sure that you get the idea that they're getting hits today and getting those dubs. And we can see that apparently the vehicles that were knocked out were BTR series armored personnel carriers. With that, that's the end of that clip, but once again showing that the 79th Air Assault Brigade is continuing to hold the area of Novomykhailivka. With that, that's actually all the frontline news that we had. There was nothing that happened in the southern front all the way through Zaporizhia and all the way down to the Kherson today. It was just completely quiet on those fronts. But with that, it's time for us to go to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 757 of the war. And so let me make sure to get you all to that speech. And without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Був сьогодні довгий день. Передусім, дякую нашим захисникам неба за збиті ракети. Більше 30, зокрема, балістика. Дуже важливо давати такий результат ППО. І з усіма партнерами ми незмінно говоримо про те, щоб посилити нашу здатність захищати небо. Системи ППО, які для цього потрібні, є у партнерів, які можуть допомогти. Варто це зробити, варто захищати життя. Петріоти та інші системи зараз потрібні саме в Україні, для наших міст і громад. З іншого боку, кожен російський терористичний удар говорить про те, що санкції світу проти путінської системи ще недостатні. Кожна російська ракета, якою ці нелюди атакують нашу країну, містить компоненти, що вироблені компаніями з інших держав, не Росії. В конструкції ракет Х-101, щонайменше 53 типи таких компонентів. В ракеті «Кінжал» не менше, ніж 49 типів компонентів, які Росія не виробляє. Значна їх частина – це те, що зроблено компаніями вільного світу і через різні сірі схеми завозяться в Росію. Блокувати такі схеми і усіх, хто їх підтримує – це обов'язково. Потрібно більше санкцій, потрібно більше відповідальності за схеми обходу санкцій. Вдячний усім державам та лідерам, які це роблять. Але тиску на Росію потрібно значно більше, і тільки сьогодні, тільки в ракетах, застосованих проти Києва, було щонайменше 1500 компонентів, які завезли державі-терористу з нормальних держав. Це повинно припинитись, і у світу є відповідні важелі. Сьогодні провів кілька нарад із військовими, з керівниками наших розвиток, зокрема і про посилення нашого захисту від російського терору і наших активних дій проти окупанта. Ми готуємо хороші, ефективні речі. Було багато міжнародної роботи. Перше – це участь у засіданні Європейської Ради. Це вже традиційний формат нашої взаємодії з Євросоюзом. Сьогодні говорили і про оборонну підтримку, і про економічні питання, зокрема про продовження вільної торгівлі між Україною та Євросоюзом, а також про реальний початок перемовин про вступ нашої держави. Друге за сьогодні в міжнародній роботі розмова з прем'єр-міністром Греції паном Міцотакісом. Говорили з ним і про посилення ППО та реалізацію безпекових домовленостей, які були досягнуті під час візиту в Україну, в нашу Одесу. Говорили і про підготовку нашої двосторонньої безпекової угоди. Третє. В Україні з візитом був сьогодні голова військового комітету НАТО, адмірал Бауер. Звичайно, ключове – це підтримка наших воїнів, захист наших людей, наближення того часу, коли ми будемо не лише ціннісно і фактично частиною Альянсу, але й коли це буде юридично закріпленою реальністю. Я дякую всім, хто підтримує Україну, українців, дякую всім, хто воює та працює заради нашої незалежності, заради нашої сили. Почав я цей день в Київській області, Мещуні та Гостомелі. Зараз вже йдуть другі річниці звільнення міст і сіл Київщини від російських вбивць. Ми маємо пам'ятати і завжди говорити про те, що Україні та українцям вдалося. Маємо завжди бути вдячними тим, хто у визначальний час не розгубився, хто бореться, працює, хто дає Україні необхідні результати. Все залежить від нашої власної сили. Україна може досягти того, що потребує. Україна це довела і обов'язково переможе. Слава Україні!
And
Herom Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 757 of the war. And that's immediately bringing us on into the next segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all, and we get to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. It is the funnest time of the stream to me, because this is usually when I get to go down deep rabbit holes that y'all have brought up for me to so graciously get into, to the point that it bores everyone to death. But nevertheless, I got to thank all of y'all once again for watching tonight. So far at the peak, we've had about 7.2 thousand people on live, and so far 36,000 people have watched the stream. And I got to thank everyone once again for watching so far. I got to thank the 1,000 people who have joined the Lee Spring Army today for joining as well, because the Lee Spring Army continues to grow stronger and stronger by the day, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And Matthew, take it away.
All right, and jumping back into our last poll question of the stream, it says Russia is now granting soldiers immunity from crimes committed during mobilization, and what are your thoughts about that? 88%, an overwhelming majority, said Russia encourages soldiers to commit war crimes, and only 5% said it seems odd but I need more info, and a measly 2% said there's nothing wrong with that. And there certainly is something wrong with that, because that does give these soldiers basically the green light to go in and commit war crimes, and they'll be totally immune from any criminal prosecution in the future. So to me, that is Putin's way of saying go right ahead, and it's certainly not holding them back from doing really nasty things on the battlefield and simply being able to get away with it. But sure as hell enough, if you vote against Putin, though, you're going to get prosecuted. But if you go commit a war crime against innocent civilians in Ukraine, you're good. Like in Russia's eyes, you are A-okay. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Russians do encourage war crimes. This is certainly a law, at least, that is starting to encourage war crimes by Russian soldiers, because there's going to be absolutely no prosecution of war criminals inside of Russia after the war, or any war crimes that are committed within the Russian Federation. So going off of that, I'd have to say that this is one of the most heinous things I've heard the Russians do, because it is truly, on a legal level, encouraging the conducting and commission of war crimes by the Russian armed forces. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and now moving back into our super chat segment, our first one here is going to go to Gene O'Reilly, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Gene, for that support. They said, can the MiG-29 get refueled in flight by a tanker like a KC-135?
From what I understand, the MiG-29 does have an aerial refueling boom, if I remember correctly, and at least some of the variants do. Let me check if the MiG-29 SMT has that refueling boom. Ought to have it. Let me go and double check though, because I swear remembering seeing one variant of the MiG-29 having such a boom, but I think most of them do not. This one, for example, this appears to be your standard MiG-29. This one does not have an aerial refueling boom. And let me see if I can find one that does. Here's the MiG-29 SMT. And it appears, I believe it's actually on the opposite side of the SMT. But this is the most advanced iteration of the MiG-29 out there in the world right now, from what I understand. But let me make sure to double check on that. There's a Ukrainian MiG-29. Once again, notice absolutely no aerial refueling boom that we can notice, or see at least. This Indian MiG-29 does not have a refueling boom either. Let's see here. That one does not. The German ones do not. The MiG-29s of the Peruvian Air Force do not. The Iraqi ones have no aerial refueling boom. The North Korean MiG-29s obviously have no aerial refueling boom. This MiG-29 AS of the Slovak Air Force has no aerial refueling boom. So it looks like for the large part, they don't. And I'm trying to make sure and do my best due diligence to get this answer. Here we go. Yes, so the MiG-29 SMT does have an aerial refueling boom. You can actually see it attached right there. It's that weird-looking nozzle protrusion on the side of the nose cone. That is an aerial refueling boom, and I believe that this is one of the few aircraft in the Russian Air Force that has a drop tank feature where it can actually carry a drop tank, and it can also be aerially refueled. Let me go try and pull up a Russian aerial tanker. One second. Aerial tanker. Let's see. The Aleutian IL-78. Let's see here. This is their refueling tanker. So I have to make sure. Double check. Yep, this is the refueler. So here is the Aleutian 78 at the Victory Day Parade. You can actually see the aerial refueling boom right there. You can also see that all of the aircraft around are the Tu-95 Bear, which has a massive refueling boom sticking out of the front nose cone, and then the MiG-29 SMTs, which are also the only aircraft that I believe of the MiG-29 variant that can actually carry any kind of a refueling boom. I do not believe that the Su-35 has an aerial refueling boom, and it's the most advanced version of the Su-27 airframe. Let me check. Okay, I'm not seeing one on the left side, but maybe there's one on the right side. Once again, not on the left. Wait a minute. That might be the front of one. Can't really tell for certain, though. Let's check this one. That is one dog ugly camo right there. That looks like dog vomit on the ground.
That's terrible. That yellow just ruins it.
Dog vomit. Dog vomit. I'm not seeing an aerial refueling boom on the Su-35. So the MiG-29 SMT is the only aircraft, the only MiG-29 variant of its kind that can aerially refuel. All of the other ones have to be refueled on the ground or have to have a drop tank attached, which once again greatly reduces the amount of loiter time that these aircraft have, and also the amount of flexibility that the air forces that operate them have when trying to conduct aerial operations. Because if an aircraft starts running low on fuel, instead of just having an aerial tanker then go to an aerial tanker and then get refueled, you have to fly all the way back to an airfield, land, then taxi to the tarmac, and then have a ground crew refuel the aircraft, which may be a lengthy process, or you have to sit there and then go and attach another external drop tank if the other one had already been dropped off. So going off of that, I hope that does answer your question fairly well, Gene O'Reilly, and thank you so much once again for the support. Now, really quickly, before we move on from that, though, I do want to say that there are different ways that American aircraft get refueled, because not all of them have a boom. Some of them have a boom, but aircraft like the F-16 do not have an aerial refueling boom. They actually have the special little slot right there. You can actually see it in the center of the fuselage that opens up, that allows them to be aerially refueled. And I'm going to see if I can show y'all this slot opened. Let's see. F6. Let me just type that in. F-16 aerial refueling. Images. And here we go. And yep, this is a perfect picture right here. You can actually see that slot opened on the rear of the fuselage right there, and you can actually see the aerial refueling boom of the KC-135 slots right into it. Very nicely, actually. A lot of aircraft actually have that feature here in the United States Air Force, not just the F-16. I believe that the F-22 also has the aerial refueling boom, and let me see if I can find that aerial refueling. Here we go. It's the exact same kind of a slot in the fuselage. The KC-135's boom fits right into it and refuels it. And this is fairly easier for both the pilot and the refueler on board the KC-135 to conduct, from what I understand, because having the floating nozzle like the IL-78 has, from what I understand, there's really no way to control where that nozzle is going. It's kind of flung around by the turbulence sometimes. And on top of that, the pilot has to pretty much do all of the input to try and even line up with that floating nozzle pretty much, and then to stay connected to it during the entirety of refueling. It's a very difficult and laborious process. The KC-135 is a lot easier. And let me see if I can get the F-15 aerial refueling, because I think it's a similar slot in kind of a... Yep, it actually is. But their slot is actually on the left side of the aircraft instead of central fuselage. And this appears to be an F-15E that is conducting aerial refueling, which is really neat, because the F-15E is one of the most advanced versions of the F-15 in service. But beyond that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with my knowledge of aircraft and how they work, because I think all aircraft in the U.S. Air Force have this kind of refueling deal. But I have to also say this really quickly, another rabbit hole. The coolest aerial refueler I've ever seen is the KC-11, the KC-10, I'm sorry, the KC-10 Stratotanker. This is pretty much like a McDonnell Douglas DC-10 that has been modified into an aerial refueler. To be honest, Matthew, I think this is the drippiest looking aerial tanker out there.
It really is. It's sleek and it looks very nice. I was about to say, I don't really care for the engine on the tail wing right there, but it looks okay.
What the hell do you mean? Dude, that's what makes it look cool. Look at this. That is
I'm just saying, it looks okay. I'm not going to bash it.
So do you know why it has that engine up there on the vertical stabilizer?
For speed.
No. Back in the day, the law required that an aircraft transiting the Atlantic, or really any ocean, had to have 4 engines. So that way, if there were any engine failures, there would still be enough engines to carry it across, because there was really nowhere for these aircraft to land.
That's only 3.
Yes, but the requirement was, I'm sorry, actually I misspoke. The requirement was that they couldn't have just 2 engines. It had to be more than 2. But the thing was that by the time that the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 was being designed, and I think the MD-11 as well, when both of those were being designed, there was already an understanding that 4 engines was wholly expensive and inefficient. 3 engines could do the job of 4, and not only that, cut down the amount of cost per aircraft and still be over that legal requirement of 2 engines for transatlantic crossings. So then they designed the DC-10 that had 3 engines, so that way it would be able to pass the legal requirements to conduct international flights to Europe and the United States, but also at the same time be more fuel efficient and also cheaper for an airline to own. And then they ran into all the problems with the DC-10, like the cargo bay doors just blowing out and then killing everyone on board and all that stuff. But beyond that, it was supposed to be an economical alternative.
Interesting.
Yes, quite interesting indeed. And then they removed that requirement, so now aircraft like the A330, which is probably one of the most common aircraft that flies internationally, are now able to do international flights even with 2 engines, because now the requirement is that as long as it has 2 engines and they're I think of a certain kind of a horsepower or thrust kilojoule power, they're able to do transatlantic crossings. Or as long as one engine is able to get them a certain distance, then they're able to do the transatlantic crossing, something along those lines. I don't know the exact law or the exact info, but if someone in the live chat knows, let me know, because I'd be very interested to learn. But with that, thank you once again, Gene O'Reilly, for the support. I hope I addressed that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is a massive $100 donation from Richard McGurl. And that is very generous support, Richard. And thank you very much for your first ever super chat of the stream. And that is a big entrance to supporting the channel. And of course, that funding will help us keep going. And it supports our whole operation. So huge thanks to you for that. And sadly, no comment to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the massive support, Richard McGurl. The first super chat that you have ever thrown in the history of this channel. But we are greatly appreciative for your first support. And while you didn't throw in a comment, we got to thank you so much for appreciating this channel enough that you find it worthwhile to support it all and support that much. Very few people support this channel with super chats that large. We feel like, when people throw in super chats in general, we feel very appreciative, but super chats like yours make us feel like we don't even deserve that kind of support. It's unbelievable support, and we got to thank you so much for that, Richard, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it really is our dream to be able to do this. And it's amazing to know that people find that this is their dream channel that they would like to support to keep the dream alive on all ends. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that addressed that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John Gardner, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much as well, John. Well, I'll stammer all the way through the super chat. And John says, can we take a moment to honor Renee Love, and I believe in honoring the fallen? And what happened to Renee?
What happened to Renee? Well, I
haven't heard about this.
I have not heard about that either. Thank you so much for the support, John Garner. And I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to talk around a little bit and ask some questions because I haven't heard anything about that. But still, thank you for the support, and I'll be looking into that after the stream. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope I was able to address that the best I can, and I hope that's just preemptive. That's not anything that's actually happened, because that would be quite unfortunate. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Blue Flam 777 LSA, who puts in the 20. And also, Siri says she is good and alive, so I'm not sure what that was about, but I'm glad to hear it, because that got me concerned for a minute. But Blue Flam 777 put in that 20, and thank you very much for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. It was actually her cat that died. I remember that.
And
Renee Love has been taking a break.
And I'm not saying thank God the cat died or anything like that, but I thought something had happened to Renee Love, and I was like, oh my God, like that's terrible. That was like a bombshell on top of us, because she's been around for a long time on the channel. But indeed, very sad news about the cat as well.
Oh, yeah. I was like, John Garner, you threw me off because I thought you were talking about Renee. But yes, it's unfortunate to hear that her cat passed away. She's been taking a break from the channel since then. And it's unfortunate to hear that the poor cat died, because we've had dogs that have passed a while ago. And it's always terrible to lose a pet, especially when you love them dearly. It always hurts greatly. So I completely understand what she's going through. And we hope that she eventually comes back to the channel, because everyone's been wishing her well, wishing her the best. And it's always terrible to lose a cat. So with that, thank you so much for the support, John Garner. I hope we were able to address that well. Now, I thought you actually meant that Renee Love passed away. Also, it can be like, oh my God, that's crazy. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that 20 from Blue Flam is quite a hell of a joke. I read the first part of it, but not the second. He said, we just heard that Grandpa has a Viagra addiction, and you fill in the dots.
Oh, no.
From Ukraine. LSA question to the chat, by the way.
I just clicked on it and read it, and I was like, oh no. But to be on that, thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flame 777 LSA. And of course, we are greatly appreciative for your channel jokes. Your jokes are greatly appreciated, Blue Flame. I cannot tell you enough how much we appreciate reading them. I know we can't read them off to the chat because we have to censor them. But beyond that, it is a good one. It was a really good one. And so with that, slow Ukrainian, long live the LSA. And let's take a question to the live chat.
And this live chat question is going to go to Marietchen, who says, does Sweden trippin', I think I might say Gripen, does the Sweden Gripen carry the Taurus, and do they have Taurus?
I do not believe that Sweden has the Taurus, but I believe that the Gripen should be able to carry a Taurus missile because all Western aircraft have the exact same kind of weapons mounts. So it should be able to carry it. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. Thank you so much, Blue Flame, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, quick announcement, by the way, if you ordered a flag, I'm seeing some folks saying, when are the flags going to be shipped out? And the ship date on the website is April 22nd. That's the estimated ship date, not a guarantee, just the estimate. But we're hoping to have them out sooner than that. And it looks like we're speeding our timeline up just a little bit with the getting the orders in and all that good stuff to be able to put them out quicker. And also, by the way, for everyone that did get a flag, we're throwing a little something extra in there in the packaging in the bag itself that y'all might find very, very cool. I'm actually excited to see it myself, and it's going to be in every single flag order that goes out. So I'm sure you'll be pleased. But with that, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support as well. And she says, celebrations for Monkey Madness visiting.
And thank you so much for the support. And a huge shout out to Monkey Madness. I don't know what's up with the madness of the monkeys. I have no idea. But still, it's great to have Monkey Madness around. And thank you once again for support, Margaret Hemsley. And thank you for being a longtime LSA viewer. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running tonight. And with that, I hope I was able to address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Frostbright Productions, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Frostbright, for that. They said Russia warns the U.S. that they will shoot down SpaceX satellites that are currently being used to spy on Russia, and would this trigger a NATO response since SpaceX is private?
It would probably trigger a armed response because SpaceX satellites, depending on which ones they are actually property of the Department of Defense or are being contracted out by the Department of Defense, making them military assets. So if the Russians actually do shoot down some of those satellites, any of those satellites for that matter, it may be considered a matter of national security, and we will be forced into responding for the most part. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And Frostbright, I got to thank you for the support tonight, and also making your profile picture that of the LSA flag with the Ukrainian colors in the background as blue and yellow in the background behind the eagle. That is really cool, and I love to see that the LSA eagle is starting to show up a lot more in profile pictures, because we're starting to see that there's a massive explosion in folks who are chatting that have that LSA eagle as their profile pic. I mean, just scrolling through the live chat right now, I can see like 2 or 3 of them, which is insane. Like, that's absolutely nuts. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Stu Bidasso, who puts in a $10 donation.
Hey!
He said, from my stepdad, Hugh, Mr. Janus.
Hey, and it's great to hear that. It's great to hear that you're back, Stu. I gotta thank you so much once again for the support. And I gotta ask, if your dad is a nice guy, if your stepdad's a nice guy, or if he's a huge anus, which one is he?
Oh wow, Jack.
Listen. When the people of America have to ask if the president of the United States is a schmuck, I have to tell them, well, I'm no stupid asshole. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much once again.
Settle down, Dick. It's just a storm.
Wait. Sounds like someone's breaking in. It's just a storm, Dick. Sit down. But anyways, thank you so much once again for support, Stu, and helping this channel to keep on running. We're greatly appreciative of you trying to have us every night. And because the way you're trying to have us is a pretty innocent way, I just go ahead and let you have it every night. That's why I just say them. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one is a $10 super chat from Certify, who does not leave a comment, but of course, Certify, thank you very much for that support as always, and it does help to keep us running. We do appreciate it very, very much. And our next one is going to go to Badger Bro, who puts in a 10, and says, Enforcer, if you were president in 2022, and you were informed Russia will invade Ukraine in the next 2 to 3 weeks, what would you say or do to deter Russia?
Well, I would preempt a Russian involvement in Ukraine by moving U.S. forces into Ukraine for peacekeeping measures before a war would begin, to hold down the fort. Because if American forces are in Ukraine already, The Russian response will never happen. They'll be scared of an American response in turn. So that's what I would have done, is I pretty much would have just blocked the Russians from even moving into Ukraine by requesting immediate emergency access for Ukrainian forces, for U.S. forces to enter Ukraine and do that instead. Of course, that would create a pretty tense standoff for a while, but the Russians would back down because their only alternative is to invade Ukraine that now has a limited amount of American forces in it, and then create a full-on war with the United States, which is something that the Russian government knows that they have to avoid because that is a lose-lose situation for them no matter how it goes. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, Badger Bro. I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got another one from Badger Bro, who puts in another pin. He says, Enforcer, we know China is helping Russia and planning to invade Taiwan in the next 5 years. And why are we doing business and trading with them? And why not give our business in manufacturing to someone friendly to us?
The interesting thing about that is that, sadly, the United States government has very little control over the companies that operate in the United States and then move their manufacturing overseas. The only way we can control that is by adjusting the amount of tariffs that we charge for incoming goods from different countries. And the way the United States could have tried to counter that was by increasing tariffs on the importation of Chinese goods, way back when they joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, which was a very long time ago. But we didn't do that. In fact, we kept them low. We kept them at the standard World Trade Organization rate, which is like 3%, which is literally nothing. And then the Chinese charge 50% on all incoming American goods to China. So very, very skewed in reality as far as the trade in between China and the United States goes. But beyond that, the reason why companies did business with China is because it was the truly cheapest option of them all at the time. Chinese labor was the cheapest around the world, especially for the kind of stuff many American companies were trying to produce. And not only that, the tariffs to ship them back into the United States in the end, along with transportation costs involved, was actually cheaper than keeping the factories in America, hiring American work crews, and then just having them run the factories. Doing that in America was actually more expensive than moving these factories almost all the way across the world in China and then just shipping all the products back into the United States. That is changing, however. They're not remaining in China. A lot of these companies are actually leaving China now because China isn't as conducive as it once was to these kinds of industrial companies. And now a lot of them are moving into countries like Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, also Bangladesh, Burma, I believe, to a small degree, India, and Mexico, which are really going to become some of our next biggest trading partners. And as of this moment, Mexico is actually the biggest trading partner of the United States in terms of the billions of dollars that they import in goods to the United States. Mexico is now bigger than China. So I believe that the Chinese influence on America is going to wane naturally, where government intervention does not really have to happen by the time that war would occur. So trade with China would be quite low by that point if a war did happen in the next 5 years. It would be quite small. We'd really have to focus on Southeast Asia and Latin America for our incoming exports at that point. They'll be our major trading partners by then. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, Badger Bro, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Herp Derp NV, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Herp Derp. They said, it seems like the Free Russian Army is better organized to pull off a coup than Hot Dog Man, who seemed to have bitten off a bigger chunk of wiener than he was actually prepared to eat.
Oh man, that stands true for both the guy who got killed last year and the guy on YouTube. Both for it's true for both of them. Straight up facts. Call it a fax machine because it's facts. But beyond that, I would have to say the Free Russian Army is probably better organized than the Wagner, but sadly they don't have the opportunity that the Wagner had. The Wagner had overwhelming public support in Russia, and not only that, they had a free run to Moscow. There was nothing stopping them. No one was getting in their way. They could have gone and overthrown the Russian government that day if they wanted to. And then they didn't. That was very sad. That was a very sad day when they decided not to. But beyond that, I would say that, yes, the Free Russian Army is probably better organized, but they don't have the same kind of opportunity that the Wagner had, in my opinion. But still, a very astute observation, Herb NV. And I got to thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you do help to make this thing possible. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is going to go to Matty Matt, who puts in a $10 donation. And yes, I like. They said, with the Russian bomb factories, are the locations well known, and why wouldn't they be targeted / blown sky high like the oil refineries?
The reason why they're not blown sky high is because attacking bomb factories is, for some, actually, to be honest with you, Matty Matt, I'd like to give a logical explanation as to why they're not attacked. I have no logical explanation as to why they're not attacked. They should be attacked. They're strategic military infrastructure. It is a direct part of a war effort or war industry. I don't know why they're not being attacked at the moment, but that is a good observation, Manny Matt. Why aren't they being attacked? I think that should be the next Ukrainian target. I really think it should be. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and I think you've cracked the code, Matty Matt. But still, thank you so much once again for being one of our Australian viewers and being one of the people asking the great questions from the land down under. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in an 8 and says, for LSA Sergeant Figment's birthday.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for congratulating LSA Sergeant Figment on his birthday. LSA Sergeant Figment is a channel legend and incredible viewer, and not only that, it was his birthday today. I believe he turned 35, if I remember correctly, in the live chat, and that is amazing to hear that he's turned another year older. Hopefully, he'll be around for another 35 years. Hopefully, in time to vote for me as president in 2040. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again for pointing out it was LSA Sergeant Figment's birthday and wishing him a very happy one. I hope he had a great one. I hope this stream was a good way to round out his day because he went to bed not long after and enjoyed a little snooze. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And guess what? We got another super chat from Stupidazo, who puts in a 10. It said, I had to double up. You guys are awesome. And thank you very much, Stu. We appreciate the support very much. And also, that's your third ever super chat on the live stream as well. So big shout out. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much, Stupid Asshole, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
That was brutal, that one.
But beyond that, thank you so much for saying we're awesome. I love to play along with jokes that we can, especially jokes like those, because you know, so many YouTubers are so, especially in this category, are so arrogant and stuck up that they can't really make fun of themselves or have fun with their live chat. They have to act like they're like gods among men, like they're the ones calling the shots in the war. I don't really like to act like that. It seems a little goofy because after all, we are YouTubers, and while we have a pretty big part in playing and getting the news out to all of y'all, we are still YouTubers in the end, and it's important to make sure to keep connected to the roots that we have as just being YouTubers. And I got to thank you so much for appreciating this channel, helping it to keep running, and not only that, thinking that we're awesome behind the scenes, probably because we're playing along with the joke. More than happy to do it. We love to play along with the jokes we can, and you make it quite easy for us. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Uncovered Cube, who I believe is already left for the night as well, but they put in a 5 and said, thanks for the entertainment, news, and knowledge y'all give the LSA. And thank you, Uncovered Cube, for being a legend. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much, Uncovered Cube, for being the first super chat of the night on the stream. And thank you so much for enjoying the entertainment, news, and knowledge that we try and put out on this channel. We try and make it as well a blend as possible, so that way it's not just one thing, raw comedy, or raw knowledge, or raw information. We try and make it a good blend of the three. And I'm glad, Uncovered Cube, that you find that to be the reality. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jason Curling, who put in a 5 and said, hey, Enforcer Matt, I sent an email about the mailing address of the flag order. And Jason actually did see it come in. I just hadn't had a chance to respond just yet, but I will respond tomorrow morning, probably by 11 a.m., if I can get around to it that fast, because I do have some things to get to tomorrow morning as well on the merch store, and getting those orders placed and things like that. But also, you didn't have to throw in a super chat for that, because I did see it. But thank you very much for the support, and I will get that address changed. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support. And we will change that address. We always have to change the address. And I got to thank you for the support, Jason Curling. and no problem at all. We are happy to help folks out with anything that's going on the merch store. And you don't. I want to make this quite clear for everyone. You do not have to send a super chat on the channel to try and have something addressed or fixed. You do not have to pay to have a support ticket opened with support. You've already gotten a flag, so anything that went wrong in the process of getting the flag or anything like that, that is absolutely free to reach out to us and let us know. But still, thank you once again for support, Jason Curling, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and let me get rid of this bot real quick. Herman, you gotta go. Sorry about that, you gotta go. And also, Dave Hove, let's see where he's at. He said, nice thing about YouTube, I can turn you off. Yeah, also, good thing about YouTube on our end is we can also turn him away from the live chat as well. So, bye-bye, David.
Man,
or Dave, whatever your name was, Dan or whatever.
Man, you know one thing, man. You take that V out of Dan's last name, you really get down to what he is. He's just nothing more than a hoe. But with that,
you know, yeah, the hoes and the rakes and all the dirt.
Well, I got nothing else to add. I was trying really hard. You may have heard the strain.
Man, everybody else is gonna know the meme. It's that dude on the news station that was like, he was talking about World Naked Gardening Day or something, and he said, "Yeah, I would like to see the hose and the rakes," and he tried to like play it off like he was talking about gardening tools.
Man, I'm telling you what, he got fired. He got fired after that. They were like, "It's time for you to go." He just wanted, "Aw." But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. After all, I hope that does. But still, thank you once again, Jason Curling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John Garner, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, John, for that support. He says, is my flag in the mail yet? And not yet. Not yet, John. It is very, very, very soon since we closed pre-orders. The flags are actually currently in production as we speak. So they will be arriving to us probably within a week or two. And then we'll get to shipping at that point when they arrive. But we have, of course, put in enough padding of time just in case they are a little bit late. To push the shipping date back to April 22nd, which is just an estimate. I must make that very clear because there might be some delays in the process. But hopefully it's sooner than that, and I have a feeling it will be. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to say that Matthew addressed that quite well indeed. And I hope that does answer the question, John Garner. I don't know if you asked that as a joke or for real, but hopefully if it's a for real question, it will be in the mail soon. And if it was a joke question, you silly goose. But beyond that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, you know what we're about to do. We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls, who puts in a $20 donation. It says, say my name 3 times.
No.
Oh, dear me.
Hang on, let me take care of this. I will say it 3 times. Jenna, tolls. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing, and we ain't doing it. It's like, we'll let stupid asshole do that to us, but we're not letting you come in here. I'm just kidding. It's genitals. That's what it was supposed to be, but I had to kill the joke. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Jenna, and helping this channel keep on running, and I hope we were able to address that well. That honestly... That was solid. That was a pretty solid move. But once you said, say my name 3 times, I immediately got tipped off, and I read the name quickly in my mind. I was like, oh, it's that. So I was like, yeah, we can't read that. I was like, we can't ever do that. But still, thank you so much once again, Jenna Tolls, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. But you didn't have us. We had ourselves deliberately because we wanted to, not because we were stupid or nothing. But beyond that, thank you so much.
A little bit asshole.
Stupid asshole. We are on to the next one, but thank you once again.
And the next one is going to go to Mr. Video, who puts in the 5 and says, hello. And hello, Mr. Video.
Oh, hello.
He says, what do you think are the chances of the Wagner joining the Freedom of Russia Legion as an attempt to infiltrate and execute them from within? And can we poll options?
Poll options? You want us to poll? We could poll options. I mean, we could literally just run a vote. But, yeah, I would say, actually, yeah, let's just run that by a poll. I was about to say, I was about to give, like, a clear answer, but honestly, I want to see what y'all are thinking about that. So, Matty, if you can find a way to structure that live chat, well, that super chat right there, into a poll, I'll filibuster in the meantime until we can get that poll up. So, can you?
Yes.
All right.
It's up now.
Oh, well, dilly dilly, oh boy, dilly dilly. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Video, for the support. And I guess we'll get the answer out of that question that you have right there in the poll segment. And so with that, we are on to the next one while that poll runs.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, who's the channel legend, ordering the number 5, take a live chat question. And the live chat question is going to go to Dale Elaticus, who says, is there any truth to members of the Wagner armies joining the Free Russia Army?
Yes. We actually got the direct statement on film by the leader of the Russian Volunteer Corps confirming that it is factual information. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. And thank you once again for the support, CK Bold, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Octavian Timosuranu. And I'm always butchering Timosuranu. Very, very good pronunciation. But thank you very much, Octavian, for that $5 support. He says, LSA, let's go. And please take a question from the chat.
And we will make sure to take a question from the live chat, Octavian Timosuranu. I got it. Oh, dang, man. I was trying to do it smooth. But still, thank you so much for the support, Octavian Timosuranu. Oh, my God. I do it every time. There's a little stutter right there. But I have a stammer. But still, thank you so much once again. And LSA, baby! And thank you so much for being one of our Romanian viewers, by the way, Octavian. Really neat country, Romania. Interesting history throughout really all of history. And also, did you know, Matthew, that the biggest bridge built in ancient Rome was actually built over the Danube River in Romania?
I did not know that.
It was a mile across. It was a huge bridge. By even modern standards, a mile-long bridge is a pretty big one. And really impressive stuff. But a cool fact of Romanian history. Let me see. The longest bridge in Rome. The Trajan Bridge. Here it is. We have the base. All right, so let me go get it. Yep. It's right where I thought it would be. Right where I thought it would be. It's like the simulations, folks. Let me go put this down on the layers. Boop. Right there. And this right here is one of the supports for this bridge on this side of the river, and then you go all the way across, whoop, 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 right over here, and then here's the other support. You can see pictures of it right there. That is the support of a nearly 2,000-year-old bridge that is still standing right there. The rest of it has sunk into the river. The bridge doesn't exist across the river anymore, but parts of it, like these here, do. And that is a really cool fact of Romanian history, that the longest bridge ever built by the Roman Empire was built right here, Trajan's Bridge. Really cool. But with that, I hope that does address that. Wales, I say. And also there's a nice little castle over here. Probably Roman era. I don't know. Maybe Roman era. Let me look at the structure. Let me look at the structure. Yeah, I would assume it's Roman, because this looks like a, I forgot what these are called in Roman house, but that looks like something.
Rocks.
Rock. Oh, hello, would you like some rock? But beyond that, looks like a Roman-style castle, just based off of the ground plan, and also the columns, which are not Corinthian, those are Ionic columns, I believe, but facts that don't matter. But still, thank you so much for the support, Octavian. I hope that does address that the best I can, dagnabbit, and we will get a live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
In the live chat question, also, you're welcome, Octavian. He said, thanks for talking about my history. And it was actually pretty interesting, actually. The live chat question is going to go to Aaron, who says, do we know what is being used to shoot down the Iskander missiles?
Probably the Patriot, the NASAMS. It could be anything, really, because we saw that Caliber got shot down by a 50 caliber machine gun, an M2. Beyond that, it could be anything, but I would assume that the most likely options are a NASAMS or a Patriot. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you, Octavian, for sponsoring that live chat.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Carrie Ann Corzo, who says, any new footage of the Russian propaganda Putin is feeding his citizens, and LSA for life?
Sadly, we don't really have any new propaganda of that, or at least any I can show, because when Putin goes and talks in the Russian public, he ends up trying to shove American domestic politics into his rhetoric somehow, some way, to try and feed into what's going on a little bit over here. So I can't really cover it much because it's a domestic political issue, but I still thank you for the support and asking about it. It's just that I can't really show any of it, at least right now. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Uncle Grandpa, who puts in a 5. And I just realized, how can you be an uncle and a grandpa at the same time? I guess you can. I guess you can, actually. It's Uncle Grandpa. He says, attesting to see if Super Chat works. And it does. Thank you. He says, thank you for your hard work for Ukraine. And long live the LSA. And Enforcer has already answered all my questions.
Hey, and I thank you for for having me answer all your questions already. But still, thank you so much, Uncle Grandpa, for appreciating this channel and truly enjoying it. It means a lot, and I got to say that it is wildly appreciated that you've been here for so long and have enjoyed this channel so much. I try my best to make sure that I can make all of y'all proud, everyone who's watching every single night, and I hope tonight I was able to succeed in that. That's up to each and every one of y'all. You know, I feel like it's such a narcissistic thing for someone to go, oh, of course I did perfect. That is so narcissistic, and people who say that don't deserve the time of day. So it's really up to y'all whether this stream was really worth y'all's time or not tonight, and let me know in the live chat if it was or wasn't. I'd be interested to know. But with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. Thank you once again, Uncle Grandpa, for the kind words, the fine words, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another one from Badger Bro, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer, if Russia attacks NATO, what will be NATO's strategic plan of action to defeat Russia?
NATO's strategic plan of action, that would be so in-depth. Goodness gracious. You know, Badger Bro, that is actually a great idea for a long-form documentary right there. That would be a brilliant idea, Matthew, because I could make a 40 to 50-minute video out of that. Like, I'm truly talking long-form documentary, pretty much.
On what now?
On a hypothetical war where the Russians preemptively attacked NATO, and then NATO had to respond. Like, the opening moves of that war in the entire 40 to 50-minute length documentary would be about a possible hypothetical NATO response.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Like, I'm not just saying this just to say it, just to put Russia down, but I'm no joke. Like, if they attack NATO, that would be the end of Russia, like, no doubt. Like, they're attacking a very, very strong defensive alliance, and the alliance is not in the business of going out to pick fights, but if Russia decides to pick one with it, Russia's going to be feeling the pain. Not because of the nuclear weapons firing off, because I doubt anyone would start with that, to be straight up. I mean, nobody really wants to end the world like that. But Russia is going to be so lacking equipment and also lacking training, manpower, etc., that NATO is going to put a whoop ass on them big time. And I think Russia knows that. Putin's admitted before, a conventional war with NATO would mean the end of Russia, and he was right on that one thing. It would be the end.
And also, on top of that, Russia as an economy that is smaller than the state of Texas in America would be trying to go up against the strongest defensive alliance that the world has ever seen throughout all of history. No defensive alliance has been stronger than NATO is right now. And no defensive alliance at any point will be as strong as NATO well into the future. Of course, one will eventually come that'll be stronger, but it's going to be a ways down the line. But in the current world we live in right now, there's just no way the Russians could compete with the ground forces alone of Europe, much less the United States and Canada as well, and then the air forces and the navies of all of these combined forces as well. That would be such an interesting hypothetical to go into, and it would require me to do a lot of research. I would also have to get a lot of hardcore historical precedents, most likely from the Gulf War, to talk about on how this would go, and try and explain it that way. That is such an in-depth question, Badger Bro. It's a great one. It's something that I actually can't go in on stream because it would just be that long. But to try and say, like, the first thing I think would happen is that there would be an immediate forcing of coalition forces into the Suwalki Gap to stop its closure. That would be the first thing that would happen. And then beyond that, it would be a massive explanation of everything else that would happen on top of that. It would be unreal. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Donald Kaus, who puts in a $5 donation, and thank you very much, Donald. He says, I've been here a long time, and you should make a Putin on the red shirt And I hope you remember my joke. And take a live chat, please. And sorry, I can't donate much.
And I remember the joke, putting Putin on the Ritz. I remember that. That was so long ago, though, Matthew. That was like in the first 200 days of the war, I think. And I remember that joke, Donald. I remember it. And I think for your
My memory is failing me. I don't remember that one, to be honest with you.
Oh, I remember it. It was hilarious. It was like during the Battle of Azovstal. It was that long ago.
That was ages ago, man. That feels like a whole lifetime ago.
Oh, that was mere ages ago.
It just sound like
I'm getting so old.
Oh, my feeble bones.
Beyond that, I remember the joke. It was a great one, and we ought to put that on a shirt, Matthew. We ought to put that, literally like Putin just sitting on a Ritz cracker. Like, just have someone illustrate that and then make that the shirt.
Yeah, and have him wearing the clown makeup, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, but with that, thank you so much once again, Donald, for the support. Thank you for being here forever, because that was such a long time ago, and we will make sure to take a live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question is going to go to Carrie Ann Corzo, who says, can we see St. Petersburg? It's so beautiful, despite its government.
Yes, we can see St. Petersburg. Probably really the oldest and most well-founded city inside of Russia. It's a really interesting place. I'll show you all some of the streets. It's really one of the only cities that's actually kept up inside of Russia, too. As you can tell, look how clean it is. It's a fairly clean city, and a lot of the Russian Federation's money goes into maintaining Moscow and also St. Petersburg. But even with it being clean, there are still some clear flaws, like buildings that have no tenants, or better yet, facades that are crumbling to where they have to put up safety nets to stop them from collapsing and killing pedestrians below, even just on this street, which is a fairly well kept up one. But if we move outside of downtown St. Petersburg, and maybe over to the area of the Savior on the Spilled Blood, which is what the war in Ukraine looks like for the Russians now, maybe we can get a look at one of these nice St. Petersburg canals. And we can. And that's a canal. And let's take a look at the quality of the buildings. All right.
Whoa, real quick, Enforcer. Big news here. It looks like the Russians have struck the Dnipro Dam in the city of Zaporizhia, and it looks like it's been severely damaged. I can't tell from the picture here. This is one picture I've got, but it's definitely been hit big time in the Zaporizhia region.
Let's see here. Looks as though, oh goodness, it looks like the
it's
dam.
a big hit.
Yeah, it looks like the dam has not been breached. We can actually go to that one right now. Sorry, we'll have to come back to St. Petersburg in a second. But it appears that at the Dnipro city area, and I believe, nope, that's not the dam. I think it's a little bit further down. Nope, that's not it either.
It looks like tonight's attack was mainly an infrastructure attack. They struck the dam in Dnipro, the Dnipro Dam, and they've also struck Kharkiv's electrical grid as well, which has knocked it out.
What? Oh my lord, Matthew, this is actually crazy. This is the dam right here that the Nazis blew up in 1943.
Really?
Yeah, this is actually the one. I can go pull up pictures of it too. Let's see, Zaporizhia Dam, 1943, I believe. Yeah, here we go. So let me go here.
Where's the power plant at, by the way? Can you point it out real quick?
It's this dam right here.
No, I mean like the actual like nuclear power plant.
Oh, the ZMPP? The ZMPP is down here.
Okay, so it's down that way, so it's not going to probably be affected by that if something collapsed.
Maybe not. Hopefully not. I mean, there's a lot of water behind this dam, though, that would end up flowing downstream rapidly and could end up swamping the power plant, which could pose problems. But, you know, hopefully not. But here is the dam that I'm trying to find. Let me see here. Destruction of the no, that's not it. That's the one that blew up recently. I think Radio Free Europe has the picture I'm looking for. And it does. This is the exact same dam. So if I click on this dam right here, we'll be able to get a picture of it. And let me get a good picture right there. So notice the shape of the dam, the curvature, and everything like that. And notice the electrical station that's over here on the bottom side of the screen. So this is the exact same dam that was actually, I'm sorry, the Nazis didn't blow this up. The Soviet Union blew this up in their retreat in 1941. But that is literally the exact same dam about 70 to 80 years ago when the Soviet Union blew it up for the first time.
How bad was it then? Like, what was the big deal here? Like, what happened? It says 20,000 to 100,000 people died.
Yes, it was a damn disaster because they blew it up. They didn't evacuate anyone downstream, and so the wash at the time, and I'll show you here on this map, the wash went straight through the dam right until I believe the southern side of Zaporizhia, which did exist at the time, and then went flowing rapidly down the reservoir and ended up just killing tens of thousands of people. It was an unmitigated massive crisis, worse than the Kakovka Dam explosion that happened in the war earlier on last year. So it was terrible. It was truly heinous. But it looks like they hit the same dam again from what we're seeing on Twitter, because this is the only picture that we have at the moment as a source showing that the dam has been hit. We see smoke coming from areas near the dam, and it looks like that smoke may actually be coming, because this was taken as a picture on the western bank right here. We can tell by the curvature of the dam as it's kind of curving back around that way. It appears that the dam has already had its electrical stations over here possibly hit and on fire, because we can see smoke coming from an area close to that. We can also see some kind of a fire happening on the dam itself right around here. The dam structure is fairly thick. I don't think a single Iskander missile hitting the dam would compromise it to the point it would breach, but that depends on where the hit was. It looks like it may have been above the water line. If it was, the dam is completely fine. It's not going to breach or collapse anytime soon, hopefully, if the concrete integrity is still there. But if it was to hit somewhere at the bottom of the base of the dam, like if it had a delayed fuse, hit the water, floated down, and then exploded, it could end up compromising the entire dam structure and leading to it to have a collapse a lot like this one that we see right here. And it looks like if it was to collapse where this fire is, it's almost in the exact same spot as the explosion that the Soviet Union conducted on the dam way back in 1941. So that is very interesting to see. The Russians are so evil they do the same thing the Soviet Union did back to the Ukrainians in 1941 that ended up killing 20 to 100,000 people back then.
Damn, that's terrible. I can't believe that Russia, I said I can't believe it, but the Russians are evil. They've struck, it looks like, a water infrastructure in Kharkiv, plus the electrical infrastructure, plus they struck the dam. It seems like pretty much all their missiles were aimed at taking out major infrastructure this time, versus actually hitting the city itself.
Yeah, they're pretty sick people. There's really no way to go around that anymore. They're just really sick people who try and inflict suffering on the civilian populace instead of actually trying to win the war. Which is just the sickest thing you can imagine, but that's what the Russians are. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, at least the best we can. And now we're going to get back to looking at St. Petersburg while that massive news goes on in the background. We'll hopefully be getting some more live developments as we go, but we're going to go back up here and take a look around St. Petersburg, because it is technically pretty, but it's hard to say that a city in Russia is pretty, even, well, because of what's happening right now in Ukraine. It's just an unmitigated disaster what the Russians are doing to the civilian populace. But they do have some slightly nice looking streets like these right here. And does that say that says Tokyo City?
Oh, that's weird.
Huh. Wonder what's in that building. I'm gonna go over there and check that out. Tokyo City, where is that? There it is. So it's a restaurant. I bet it serves Japanese food, I'd assume.
Oh, that's nice.
Huh. So it does serve Japanese food. The chairs are not my style, but still pretty posh. But once again, this is the second most luxurious city in Russia, or the one that the Russians put most of their money into, and it's a tourist trap, so it makes sense that it looks nice. But still, you know, you get off those streets and go onto some of the less traveled streets, and they are already falling apart. Or if you want to look at the real reality of what most citizens of St. Petersburg are living in, we can probably come out here and see that quite well. This is what real St. Petersburg looks like out here. Unmowed sidewalks, unmowed streets, no lines even painted onto the road, and these right here are poorly maintained. And there's already squalor out here in the suburbs. Kind of showing you how little money is actually put into anything but keeping up a nice facade for the general traveling public. But still, with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you so much for the support and allowing us to take a little bit of a look around St. Petersburg. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to, real quick, before we get on to the next one, by the way, we do have a poll running. Do you think the Wagner are joining the Freedom of Russia Legion to attempt to infiltrate and execute them from within? 63% said no, and 37% said yes. And I would have to agree with the no. I think Wagner really does have a bone to pick with Putin, and they are back once again to haunt him. That's my opinion, though. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my honest opinion, I don't think they're there to try and infiltrate them from within. There's probably a decent amount of vetting that went into getting these guys in the unit. So I would have to say most likely no. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Donald Kaus. Once again, he puts in the 5 and says, Putin on the Ritz joke. It comes from your video, Ukraine fights for Azovstal over a year ago and a half. And love you guys, and take a live chat question. And also, thank you very much, Donald, for the kind words.
And thank you so much, Donald, for the kind words. And I hadn't even read that super chat yet, and I got it dead on the nail when that joke came around. It was like, putting on the Ritz. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support once again. Thank you for sharing that with us. And also, that wasn't just a year and a half ago. That was nearly 2 years ago, Donald, when that joke was said on air. Because right now, 2 years ago, the Battle of Azovstal was happening right now. So that was that long ago, which is crazy to think about. Also, it's crazy to look at the total devastation of Mariupol from space. You can see that on satellite footage here, how devastated everything still is. Buildings completely gone, without roofs, without structure, sometimes destroyed all the way down to the foundation. And the Azovstal completely gone. Like, most of the Azovstal was completely destroyed. Especially everything on the western side, because this is the side that the Azov battalion held, or the Azov brigade held, with the most fervor. So this area was completely bombed into oblivion. And most of the buildings that were originally here, as you can see, caved in or simply do not exist due to the sheer damage that was caused. But then that damage just continues on throughout the rest of the city, just endlessly. Hardly any buildings exist without any real damage, and it's unfortunate to see that. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, another big piece of news here, it looks like Ukraine is striking back into Russia. I'm unclear if it's actually Freedom of Russia Legion doing it or it's Ukraine, but there's currently massive missile alerts going off in Belgorod. People are being told to go to shelters immediately, and there appears to be missiles on the way heading into Russia from some location, either on the border in Ukraine or from the locations of the Freedom of Russia Legion soldiers. So it looks like they're going blow for blow at the moment, and it looks like Ukraine is striking back, or it's either the rebels doing it either. So big news on that. But Enforcer, what say you?
Very interesting, and hopefully we can get more developments on that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Siri, who puts in the 5 and says, proud of you, Enforcer Bros. And Norway was the first NATO member and Euro country to extend compulsory conscription to women, and check out our crown princess.
And thank you so much for the support, Siri. And also, that's very interesting to hear. I actually did not know that about Norway, and that's very interesting. Now, let's check out that crown princess of Norway. Let's see. Hopefully, I have the right one. Let's see here. I'm just trying to make sure. Just checking everything. Okay, so this is the crown princess of Norway. Her name is Mette-Marit, if I'm saying that correctly. I do not know if I'm saying that correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But here she is right here. That is the crown princess of Norway. Pretty cool. I actually did not know that the Norwegian royal family had a crown princess. Usually it's like a crown prince or something along those lines. But let's go check out some interesting history. Let's see here. She is married to Crown Prince Haakon, the heir apparent to the Norwegian throne, making the next queen consort of Norway. Norwegian commoner, single mother, with a disadvantaged past. She was a controversial figure at the time of her engagement, became crown princess when her marriage in 2001. They have 2 children. In 2018, she was diagnosed with a form of pulmonary fibrosis. Unfortunate. She's being treated at Oslo University Hospital and has restricted her royal duties. Unfortunate. But let's see here. Interesting. Very cool. And also, thank you so much once again for support, Siri, and sharing this interesting little bit of information with us. And I'll try and read about it a little bit more, but very cool. And so, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, folks, an update on the Dnipro Dam situation. The damage to the dam is apparently extensive. We got new images here on Twitter, Enforcer, if you want to go take a look. It's actually daylight photos here because it's just turning daylight in Ukraine of the damage itself. And it looks like there's a hole blown in the top of the dam from the looks of it.
Let's see here. So we do have a picture from the actual dam. Unfortunately, it appears like a city bus was on the dam when it was hit and has been destroyed in the explosion. Hopefully not that many people were on board. But we can also see what does appear to be a large breach above the road structure on the dam. If we go back to Zaporizhzhia really quickly and we look at this dam, we might be able to assess the level of damage that has been caused by pictures. So going here, we can see the road structure right there at the very top of the dam, which appears to be elevated above the floodgates. So if anything, it looks like some of the floodgate ramps may have been knocked out in this explosion, but it looks like the floodgates still remain. So it looks like the damage has been significant above water level, but below water level, we can't really tell at the moment. And also considering that the floodgates here on this dam are at the very top, like they are in some Alabamian dams, I would assume that these floodgates have not been damaged, or otherwise we would already hear of some kind of a severe leak happening where water would be pouring out of the dam already. So hopefully not too severe where it's called structural cracks, because if it has done that, the dam may go. But at the moment, it looks like the damage is only severe above the road structure that is on the dam. So with that, also, we actually have a picture from OSINT Technical here showing the dam before the explosion. So it does appear, best I can tell, it was these little floodgate ramps, because these little concrete partitions over here on the left side, Matthew, in between those are these giant steel gates that they can lift up and down to regulate the amount of water flowing out of the dam. So going off of that, it looks like this damage is superficial at the moment. And while it looks very severe, the dam can still function.
It also looks like the Russians targeted the control tower of the dam as well, because that's exactly where the missile hit, and it looks like the control tower may be completely destroyed from the looks of it.
Yeah, it does actually, because you can actually see the gantry, well not really the gantry, but more so the beam structure of the control tower is now laid across the roadway in front of the dam. So it does look like the control tower has been completely destroyed, and that looks like the area of the dam that has also been caved in right there.
Yeah, so that's I'm really not sure if it's too early to say that's not too much damage or what, because I really can't tell, but it looks like it's decently bad damage from the looks of it.
Yeah, it looks like I would say this is probably, as far as the operation of the dam, light damage, but in reality for traffic crossing the dam and also probably the operation of the dam, this is probably considered moderate damage, but not severe damage that will lead to a collapse of the dam. So with that, I hope we were able to address that bit of breaking news fairly well, getting y'all some more developments of the ongoing attack on Ukraine. But with
Also, if you want to check out one more image, it's on our profile now as well. If you refresh the page, we got another fresh image as well. It should be on the right side there. That's from Belgorod, that one.
So let's see, there's the fire on the dam. Looks like it's near the control tower still. Actually, that looks like where the control tower is. And then this looks like it's looking east. So this is actually... So the smoke is coming off of one of the power generating units off to the side of the dam. There's one on the western side, and there's one on the eastern side. And from what we can tell, it looks like both of them, or this eastern side, may have been damaged. It looks like they've also been hit by some kind of an explosion and have caught fire. So the dam's ability to produce electricity may be completely knocked out. As a matter of fact, we don't even know if the dam's really going to be operational beyond this point, because if all of the electrical components that function the dam have been destroyed or heavily damaged, it may be impossible to lift these floodgates reliably on the dam and keep the flow of water regulated. So, hopefully that's not the case, but we're going to be getting more information as time continues to pass. But with that, I hope that does address that bit of breaking news. Thank you so much, Matthew, for sleuthing that and finding that for us while we're live on air. And with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next one is going to go to John Scott, who puts in a 5 and says LSA.
And LSA and A! Thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you once again for being an absolute LSA legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Vladimirovich, the Lost. And indeed, Vladimir Putin is the Lost. He says, even I find your broadcast interesting.
Oh, thank you. But beyond that, thank you for your first super chat ever to the channel. And thank you for finding this thing worthwhile. We try our best to make the news as interesting as it can possibly be, and it means a lot to us to know that you find it to be worthwhile and fascinating. And thank you for your first super chat in the history of this channel. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Old Man Gibb, who puts in a 5 and says, what are your thoughts on the UFO sighting by the Ukraine drone?
Well, I hate to see that the Ukrainians caught Matthew and me trying to get battlefield footage. Very unfortunate, because usually we use the probe, we call it the probe, to fly over the Ukrainian front lines and then just film the stuff on the spot. And then we go and upload it to places like Reddit and Twitter, and then we go back and act like we are open source intelligence when we're actually the ones filming it. I'm just kidding. I don't know what that was, and unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of comments to make because I have no idea what it really is. It's beyond my comprehension, my worldly comprehension, that is. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Old Man Gibb. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, RC information or disinformation going around Twitter. It's like images of the dam that was destroyed last year in Ukraine. I'm not sure where that was. Do you recall which dam that was?
That would have been the Novikakhovka Dam down here. This one in particular.
Yeah. There's already like pro-Russian bot accounts already like tweeting out that video saying it's the Dnipro Dam that's been destroyed, which is totally false. It has not been destroyed. It's just been hit and damaged. But already the bots are at work. But with that, we're moving on to our next super chat here, which goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a 5 and says, what is happening in other areas of Russia regarding the internal rebellions?
From what we understand, the Ingushettian armed rebellion is going back into hibernation for a little bit. It'll probably pop up again. And we're not really seeing any other armed rebellions at the moment. So I hope that does address that the best I can, Scott Kemp. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a 5 and says, all right, Governor, I need some marmot.
And we, of course, have to oblige every request. We have to get it. We have to do our thing, Matthew. It's time for that little precious... Hey! Oh, hello there!
Hello there.
Would you like a plum?
Would you like plum? Would you like rock?
Rock.
Would you like rock with some blood on the ground next to the rock?
Yeah.
Tuberculosis.
I got the perfect skit, Matthew. Aw, man, I'm gonna turn against the only people I have left that talk to me. That's just funny, Governor.
Watch your mouth, Pee-wee.
Oh, man. Oh, man, I really just, I've been, in case y'all don't know, I've been having a lot of entertainment today watching what's been going on in other areas of the Ukraine war world, and it always just reminds me, folks, make sure to pick your friends carefully. And once you make your bed, you gotta lie in it. You know what I mean? Like, I've been having a great time today, an incredible time.
It's like a hot dog with extra mustard and ketchup.
I'm telling you what, it's not that's not just going to be a thing happening at the county fair anymore. That's going to be something permanent here before long. But with that,
come on, some more, baby.
More relish, Governor, more relish.
More moaning, Governor. Can you cut out the moaning, please? Thank you, good sir. Please bring forth hot dog with no extra relish. Thank you, sir.
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man, I'm really just getting a kick out of it. Just having a fun time over here. Just loving life, living life. You know what I mean? But still, thank you so much for the support, Sully Canuck. I hope you enjoyed our silly little marmot in his silly little time on air. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a $5 donation, and thank you very much, Jack, for the support. He says, will you post pictures of Enforcer signing the HEPA flags, maybe on Patreon, and the dashes to avoid the blocked word? And yes, Jack, I'm going to take pictures of him in there sweating in the sweatshop. He's going to be signing those flags. I'm telling you what, he's going to be signing them nonstop, and I've had to place another order for those nice, sweet, luxury premium paint pens to make those signatures with, because I think we're going to run out of the ones we've got. But I will put that on Patreon, and that's going to be a coveted photo, one to be worthy to be framed on the wall. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, thank you so much for the support, Jack Ray. And yes, we will have that on Patreon. So if y'all want to see me in the future signing a whole load of LSA flags, or at least a couple of pictures of me signing a whole load of them, make sure to join our Patreon because you'll be able to see it. But with that, thank you so much for once again for support, Jack Ray. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to JP on the road, who throws in a $4 super chat. And he said a lot of stuff without having to hardly type anything. He threw in a hot dog with mustard only. And we know what that means, unfortunately. We know what that means. Only mustard, it's a signal.
I gotta say thank you so much, JP on the road, for the support. Thank you for throwing in one of the most common and ubiquitous food types here on the channel that's talked about. I gotta tell you something. I gotta tell you, it is just sweet. It's just sweet to see it out there in the world right now. I can't tell you all enough that we just sat there and we're doing our thing. We're just chilling, and after 8 months now, it's all it's all coming together. Like, you know, well, not really coming together from our own design or anything. It's just coming together that bad eggs end up cracking each other in the end to make one of the most terrible omelets you've ever seen, to put it in code. And I just gotta say, it just feels like it was a long time coming, you know, that people would really realize what that one person was about in particular, because they don't get along with anyone. Hell, they can't even get along with their real parents or their adopted parents. And then to see the other guy in particular, Matthew, just be so rude off the bat. It's it's so interesting to me. But anyways, with
Who are we
that,
talking again? Who are we talking about?
well, it's not a pissing contest, Matthew.
Oh, who's that?
Oh, I have no idea. All I know
Who's that stuff? Who is this good stuff? Order!
Matthew,
Who's that?
Please, we're not going down that route because nothing else matters on this channel but Ukraine. Ukraine matters. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and throwing that in, JP on the road, because we know what it means. And so that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jenna, and last name Tolls, who puts in a $2 donation and says, "I'm getting clammy."
I get it. Oh, but I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, YouTube hates me. Said Enforcer, fake history. Kyiv was the capital of Russia. Moscow became capital after the patriarch died while in Moscow. Just saying. No, you're wrong. I hate to be rude, but you're just wrong. You see, what happened is that during the Mongol invasion, the country of the Kievan Rus split in two, and the southern parts rebelled against the Mongols and fought them and got devastated. And then the northern part of the Kievan Rus, in between Moscow and Nizhny Novgorod, ended up joining the Mongols so that way they could be spared. And that's how those two states ended up really forming, was because of the Mongol invasion. Kyiv is the capital of the Kievan Rus, but Moscow became the capital of the Duchy of Muscovy, and then in Nizhny Novgorod, the capital was something along the lines of Tver, or another town up here in this area. So, I hate to say that, Governor, but kind of wrong, because there was no Russia at the time either. Russia formed in, like, I think the latter part of the 16th century, so there wouldn't have been a Russia at that time. It was a whole bunch of princely states, or the Kievan Rus, and then when the Kievan Rus was beat to hell by the Mongols, then it broke up into multiples of duchies and princely states and things like that. And then through the next few decades, they would end up all coalescing into creating Russia, and then they would eventually go back into Cossack lands, which created their own identity, and also was controlled by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in Turkey, well, more so the Ottoman Empire and other areas, and then the Russians would end up steamrolling through that area and then bringing it back under the control of the Russian Empire. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well indeed, because that's the history that I got in college. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now fresh out of live chat super chat questions, so we're moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the LSA signal corps decodes today's Morse code as: all of Russia will now know the story of the Free Russian Army and what they have done. And long live the LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all hit the jackpot. Y'all got it dead on the nail. I got to congratulate y'all for getting to do that every single day. It's unbelievable, and y'all got it correct on the 757th day. By the way, fun fact, this is something that I've been having a hard time not saying on air, is that now that we're in the 700s, whenever we hit on something like 737, 747, or anything like that, it always makes me think about Boeings. And today's Boeing is the Boeing 757 in honor of day 757 of the war. This is a aircraft that was introduced into service in 1983 and is famously known because it's one of the more interesting and kind of sleeker looking domestic flyers here in the United States. Really interesting little planes, and people just know these aircraft all over. Look at this one in the Monarch Airlines livery. I gotta say, for some reason, liveries back in the day just looked cool. Absolutely busting. Look at the Shanghai Airlines 757. Just wicked stuff. Really cool. I mean, look at this UPS freighter version of the 757. Really cool overall. Just so many neat ones. Hell, even Air Force 2 is actually a Boeing 757. Pretty neat, right? Like, pretty cool stuff. I mean, it's just the neatest of things. And beyond that, Delta operates them. Everyone operates the 757. But anyways...
Hell, it's better than the 737, that's for sure.
Better than the 737 MAX. But anyways...
You go with the 737 minimum if you want to, you know, get a safe flight.
Yeah, you better go with a minute. Oh, dude. Okay, I'm not going to lie. That's actually kind of drippy right there. Just the stainless steel.
A little too old school for me.
Get the hell out of here. What the hell do you mean? What do you mean? This, oh, that's just not a good livery. I'm sorry. The modern British Airways livery is absolutely bussin'. This one, not so much. What about this one? Air Europe.
Air Europe.
Did they put that shit in aerial flights?
It looks like some kind of like short-term airline or something.
Yeah, it doesn't look like
they're here for the day.
Yeah, they're here for the day, not for tomorrow. But still pretty neat. Wait a minute, Boeing C-32. Oh, this is the U.S. Air Force one. It doesn't look bad in that livery.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
There it is by Air Force One, just to give you a scale comparison.
Man, that's a chunk next to that one.
Man, that thing really is. That thing would be a chonky boy. But man, look at this. I like it with no livery. That actually looks kind of nice.
Yeah, it is kind of neat.
You know, Matthew, if we ever get a jet, we got to get one of these. We got to get one of these little fellows. You know, to start running an airline with one of them. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you, everyone, so much for entertaining me for a moment and let me talk about why, for some reason, day 757 is interesting. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving on to our first live chat question. The first one goes to Mark Gagne, who says, can Russian aircraft refuel from an air tanker?
I believe we answered that live chat a little bit earlier. Only the MiG-29 SMT can. None of the other Russian aircraft can refuel aerially. And so with that, I hope we answered that again fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Butchie777, who says, any news of what is happening in Ingushetia?
From what we know, the Ingushetian armed uprising has gone back into hibernation because we haven't heard of any ongoing firefights in the area in between them and Russian forces. So from what we know, they've gone back into hibernating. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bill Rink, who says, where will Russia get troops for Shoigu to form 2 new armies?
They'll have to probably partially mobilize to be able to do something like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to O2. She says, I heard today that Putin is having soldiers from the front line return back to Russia to try to fight the Russian Freedom Army, and what are your thoughts?
Let's see. Can you reread that again?
They said, I heard today that Putin is having soldiers from the front line return back to Russia to try and fight the Freedom of Russia Army. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yes. Actually, we reported on that here on this channel at the beginning, in like the first 30 minutes. So I would say that's true because we reported it. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Barry Woodward, who says, to hear about news headlines of China going to Taiwan in 2027 just seems too far away with the current facts. So is it real or a psyop?
Probably real, because usually military timetables work over about 5 years, and that would be within the next 5 years, within the next 3 actually. So it's not that far away in reality. It just seems far away on a normal level. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, Matthew, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up while you address that super chat.
So our next super chat, this time's a super chat, goes to Halligan218, who puts in a $5 donation and says, pull up the American Airlines 757 Astrojet. I love the retro livery on it.
Oh, this is cool. Okay, this one, Matthew. If you don't like it, we can't be friends anymore. it's that good. It's
Well,
actually
friends.
we can't be
Brothers,
friends.
you mean?
We can't even be that. It's like if you don't like this, it's over. It's over. The Astrojet 757 livery.
It's $12.90.
Wow, that's actually really
That's a bargain.
A bargain. Yeah, I'll get it. I'll take one. But this
Got good ratings.
It's got 4.5 stars. Now, Matthew, what's your take?
My take is it looks pretty good.
My
But
take,
if it was a 737, it would have 1 star. Probably less than that.
yeah, yeah. Have anyone seen the 737s lately? I actually saw one. It came through the roof. But anyways,
Careful talking about it because you don't want to talk about Boeing too much.
Whoa,
You know what I mean?
Whoa, hey, easy, pal. You can't talk about the legacy companies like that. But beyond that, really cool looking livery, I think this is dripping. Like no lie. Also, is this an Astro? What the hell kind of plane? Is this like a French Dassault? I think it is. It looks like one.
That's the type of plane when you put it on the runway, it goes.
Dude, those tiny jet engines from like the 60s or the 70s. Ugh. But let's look at more of these. Look at that. That's a Boeing 707 in the American Airlines Astrojet livery. Dude, honestly, that was a drippy livery. I'm not going to lie, with like the little red pinstripe going down the side and everything. Not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Pretty neat. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. But also, let me go back to this. Where the hell is it? Wow, they actually had 1 million vintage liveries. All right. Just gonna have to try and get the best picture I can. Dang it. Dang it. It saddens me, Matthew. It saddens me. But they have one vintage United Airlines plane flying around, before they started shoving dogs in the airspace, like crawl spaces, and they started suffocating and everything. They had these really cool looking liveries that were very American looking.
Where'd that other fact come from out of the blue?
Oh, it's just what I remember United for,
Oh, damn.
But check, doesn't that look good?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get over from that comment out of the blue. You're like, look at this airplane, it looks so good. And there's some dogs suffocating in the cabin, but it looks so good. It's like, what the hell?
So for a while, there was like this thing that happened a few years ago where United started getting into this into boiling hot water with the public because multiple dogs that were carried on into the cabin because they were allowed to be were forced by the flight crew to be put into the overhead compartments, and they would cram the dogs into the overhead compartments and they'd suffocate and die right over the heads of their owners.
Oh,
so
damn.
So it was a massive deal. It happened to 3 dogs over the course of like 2 weeks. It pissed everyone off, the public, and then United said, hey, we're learning. And then after that, that's when the brawl started to happen on United Airlines too, that were being filmed by people on board, like in between the flight attendants and like the passengers. There would just be full-on fist fights going on, and people would be all bloodied in the face and everything. I mean, for a while, United was like the damn Wild West of the air. Like if you got on the United Airlines flight, it was a free-for-all. Dogs weren't safe, you weren't safe, no one was safe up there. The flight attendants weren't safe. Hell, even the air marshals weren't safe up there on United. But beyond that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Just why I said that comment. But with that, I thank you once again for support, Halligan, and sharing that with us. And with that, we are back into the live chat questions.
And we're actually back to our super chats. This one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a £5. And thank you for that £5. And they said, you need a British short SC7 to travel around in. And what is that? Is that a car?
Ew. No.
Whoa, what the hell is that? It must have been on a balsa?
No, it's worse. It's the damn flying box. Dude, look at this woman right there. Hello.
And the call sign says G Biol.
Man, this thing be a G bowl. You know what I mean? Cut here in emergency. But oh my heavens, this thing is hideous. Let's see here. It's a British 19-seat twin turboprop manufactured by Short Brothers of Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Brothers.
They had to have been short in design quality because this thing looks hideous. Like, it is truly one of the ugliest things I've seen. They built 150 of these god ugly creations. Only God could love this thing. It's just a hideous plane. Oh my goodness. Oh my god.
It's a good airplane, governor, made by the Short Brothers.
I would not buy anything from a group of brothers called the Short Brothers. Like, Enforcer Brothers doesn't sound that bad, but Short Brothers sounds stupid. Like, this legit... Does the United States use these things? Whew, thank the Lord we don't. That's us gonna be like, we cannot shame the United States by having these things here. But, if it interests anyone, the Omani Royal Air Force uses these things. Ew.
Japan uses them, too.
What? Huh? The Japan Coast Guard uses these things. Well, I lost respect for the Japan Coast Guard today.
Hey, Israel, aviation uses them.
Dude, that's what happens when I step on the Lego. I go, it's in aviation and tourism. But what do they have as their flying stock? So they have a couple of older private jets, Short 360, which is a bigger version of the last one. A couple of Cessnas, for some odd reason. Huh. Then they have this thing. Then they have a Chieftain, a Piper, a de Havilland DCH-6, and then the Skyvane. Their fleet is not that great.
By far the worst. And they're using that for skydiving, of all things.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know about it. I don't know.
Skydiving time.
Man, when you go up in the box, they said be there or be square. You end up going here and you're still square. It's a literal perfect square. But anyways, with that, y'all know we have to move on. But still, thank you so much for the support and sharing that ugly plane with us. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat this time from Halligan218, who put in a 10. And thank you very much. He says, we made a poster for our break room that said, United Airlines, we're here to sell seats and kick ass, and we're all out of seats. And the United guys were not a fan of it. LOL.
I would say not. I mean, really, though, they got the reputation because it was deserved. I mean, for a while, United was literally looked at in the public as, like, Thunderdome of the skies. Like, you got on those planes, and anything could go down. People were, like, having Fight Club on that thing. People were murdering each other. I mean, the WWE was trying to sign contracts to fight in the middle of the aisles while the planes were flying from place to place. It was a crazy time in aviation history, a time I didn't want to be around in. But still... Thank you for the support, Halligan218, and sharing a little bit of a tidbit about that with us, because that is hilarious that y'all actually had a poster adding to that joke. But still, thank you so much once again. And now we are back to the live chats.
All right. And Enforcer, it looks like we have one question left in the spreadsheet. So would you like to do the honors?
Of course. All right. And so we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is OTubes, who says apparently Russia is going to line the border with Finland and Sweden with soldiers and things of destruction. And what are your thoughts?
I don't think they have that many to do that with. It's probably going to be nothing more than a smoke show than anything. Probably won't be that impressive. And on top of that, what are they going to do? Menace NATO countries? I mean, they're going to just piss off America, and then France is going to whip out Leguppy, and it's going to be over. So... I have to be quite honest, nothing really to be scared about, because NATO is behind Finland and the Baltic states, so if they try and do anything to any of them, it's not going to go well for them. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I got to thank all of y'all so much once again for being here with us tonight and watching the stream. At the peak, there were 7.2 thousand people here. Absolutely unbelievable for us to keep up this kind of viewership for over, I believe, 3 weeks now, almost every single stream. And 50,000 of y'all have watched it just in the course of 3 hours already. We are absolutely astonished and absolutely amazed that so many of y'all find this channel to be a quality source of news. And I also have to thank the brand new 1,000 people who have joined this channel over the course of today, again, and are enjoying it and continuing to watch it. We are absolutely we are absolutely grateful to have you all here, all of the new folks here, along with everyone else who has been here, and we hope that you all find this place to be your brand new home on the internet. There are many amazing people here. They, of course, are very kind people. I'm sure y'all make great friends once y'all get around here and get comfortable, and I thank you all so much once again for watching this stream tonight. If you did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because we run these streams 6 days a week, every day but Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine in picture and video evidence. And we also put out short war summaries pretty much every single day, hopefully news permitting, of course. And it seems as though many people enjoy those. Actually, more people enjoy those than enjoy our streams. And also, if you're not into the long-form content that we do with these streams, it's almost 3 hours or 3.5 hours long every single night. And, you know, there's a lot of jokes and, you know, sometimes people call it filler here and there, although I find it to be fun. You can always go and check out the short war videos, because that'll probably be more up your alley. They're usually about 12 to 20 minutes long. It's somewhere in between there now. And they usually cover some of the top events of the war that day. But with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all for another great stream once again tonight. It was an excellent stream tonight. And also, like the Enforcer said, be sure to join us tomorrow for our short war summary. Enforcer's going to be taking that one tomorrow, and we'll have all the updates for all the recent events. And once again, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, and thank you all, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.